えはいつも私の胸に なんでだろうあなたを選んだ私ですもう止まらない運命様から決められたけど I believe
Hello and welcome to the Third Impact Anime Podcast, where we do the will and bidding of the Data Integration Thought Entity. I am SOS Brigade Member 00, Austin, and here with me I have SOS Brigade Member 001, Ryan.
Hello.
How's it going, Ryan?
It's going.
Cool. And I have SOS Brigade Member 002, Mr. Tobias. How's it going, Tobias?
It's going pretty great. I'm here, happy, excited, and talk about Japanese animation.
Yeah, we do that a lot around these parts. It's fun to talk about anime,
Yeah.
Japanese cartoons. So this week, we're going to be talking about 2006's Kyoto Anime television series, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. It was kind of a phenomenon back in the day, about, oh gosh, what's it been, 12 years ago, whenever
Yep.
that series first came out. It's pretty wild to think that this show is so old, but we're gonna be chatting about it and having a great time. Ryan, I know this particular episode means a lot to you because Haruhi is one of your favorite series of all time.
No, it is my favorite series.
All right, and Tobias and I will be able to grill you on how wrong you are for these thoughts that you have. All right. Well, before we get into it, I guess we'll do a little bit of catch up. So, Tobias, you and I recently did a con this past weekend. So, do you want to talk about ARC for a minute?
Yep. So ARC, or Asheville Anime Regional Convention, is held in our little sleepy mountain town in Asheville, North Carolina. It's one of the remaining conventions in town. We've had a couple over the years that kind of fizzled out, but ARC's been going strong for about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm part of the team there. Really happy at what's going on with that convention. A little on the small side, but it's still a local thing, so that's all fine and good. We, of course, did a whole lot of panels, both myself and Third Impact as a whole, and yeah, everything went went off well without a hitch. No major technical issues, which is always a plus.
Nice.
And yeah, it was kind of fun to get that full convention experience, at home in a small little 2-day thing. And I actually bought stuff this time. I rarely buy stuff at conventions, but I bought a whole bunch of swag.
Nice.
What'd you get?
I picked up, first of all, this new manga by Inio Asano, who did Goodnight Pun Pun. His brand new manga series, Dead Demons DDDDD Destruction, which I picked up just because of the title. I love that title so much.
You said this is the same guy who did Pun Pun?
Pun
Yeah.
Pun, yes.
That's
And
a bit of a tonal shift.
And because of that name, and I've kind of been into Pun Pun lately, I also found a copy of Solanin, an earlier manga series they did, and I picked that up on a whim. I also picked up, looking at it here, the Gunbuster movie, because I realized that I only have it in VHS. I picked up Tweeny Witches, which I think was a Studio 4C thing that you also worked on a while back that I've been meaning to check out.
Mm-hmm.
And the
remember,
Ginrei special.
I remember that one was on Netflix for a while, but I don't think it's on there anymore, unfortunately. It came with that whole, whenever Netflix launched in Japan, Studio 4C was like, we're going to get our entire catalog up there, but I don't think that's still the case anymore. I don't think they have quite the volume of stuff that they used to have on there. But I do
Yeah.
remember 20 Witches being on there.
Right. And I picked up this awesome book that you almost bought, Austin, The Art of Studio
true.
Gainax
Ooh,
by
nice.
Dani Cavallaro. It was a bit on the pricey side, almost $50, and it's not a very thick book, but there's a couple essays in here, several essays actually, and it looks like there's a lot of words in this book. So I'm always looking for better information about Gainax and stuff. So
Is it in English?
it is, yes.
Nice.
I did think it was funny how the the vendor, whenever we picked that up, he was just like, just so you know, that's not a picture book, it's a words book or something like that. And I bet, yeah, he's probably had multiple people like pick that up and be like, "Oh, cool, neat, art of Studio Gainax," and then open it up and it's just walls of text. But for big nerds like you and I, Tobias,
Well, you can
that's enough.
You can technically write it off on your taxes because it's for research purposes for your panel.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. 100%. It's a business expenditure.
Business
under
expense,
the,
that's the term. Thank you.
under the Third Impact Anime LLC or whatever.
Oh, gotta get on that. Make that LLC.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. We are a strictly for-profit institution.
We're just really bad at it.
Yeah, we're very bad at it. Yeah, so I was up there at ARC as well, and probably the highlight of the convention for me was that delicious tea shop where it had probably the greatest cheesecake I've ever had.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a tall
Man.
order.
Yeah, it was just so good. Like it was that perfect sort of mixture of like, you know how cheesecake is one of the things that you don't want it too cold, but you don't want it too warm either.
Yes.
It was right in the middle. It was just so pleasing, and it was a flavor combination that I'm really into with matcha and chocolate both together. And
oh my god,
man, God, it was so freaking good. And the tea was also really good. I got a whole bunch of green tea.
Well, it was just in time for National Cheesecake Day. That was on Monday.
Oh really? Oh wow.
Nice.
Yeah, Cheesecake Factory. My friends and I went out to Cheesecake Factory because they had half off slices of cheesecake on National Cheesecake Day.
Oh man, Cheesecake Factory, otherwise known as the Land of Mordor.
Yeah.
With those weird Sauron eyes everywhere.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been to Cheesecake Factory. I should go back again. But anyway, yeah, my panels went over pretty well. I think I got my record lowest attendance, which I'm now proud of.
Why?
Well, I mean, we always have to have a low. We have to establish like what is the absolute like rock bottom you can go. And I want to say that it was 5,
All right.
maybe. And then I hesitate to include the how to panel because that was sort of that was like an ensemble thing that Tori and Tobias and I all did. And we had one guy in there for a while who was a staff member, and we basically just like sat and talked with him about the panel, and Tobias like showed him a bit of it, and we just sort of had a conversation with that. But then he got pulled away, and then about 15 minutes before our panel slot was supposed to be over, a girl who was probably like 10 or 12 and her dad came in, and they were just like, "So what's in this room?" And I was just like, "Oh, this is a panel about the art of paneling." And she was like, "Okay, that sounds neat." So they both walked in and sat down.
All right.
And she sat like almost in the front row, if not in the front row, and her dad sat in the back. And then Tobias just kind of started over the panel from the beginning, and we went through it kind of quickly. And she was just like, you know, just sitting there, very attentive, sort of nodding her head, saying, It was, she seemed very engaged. It was pretty cool. And I hope that she comes back and does a panel. That'd be cool.
I've never had to like speed panel before, but so that was really fun.
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes to do the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that's neat.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. Pretty unique little thing. But, yeah, ARC was fun. Small con, but it was a good time.
Yeah, I mean the numbers.
Yeah, I really
sorry.
Yeah, I really wanted to go this year, but I got stuck working on call, so there was no way I was going to be able to drive out to Asheville and do panels and also not get called in to do work.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I really can't this year, but next year definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know how ARC goes. You've been before, so I mean,
I had a lot of fun though.
Yeah, it's fun. It is what you make it in a lot of ways. Which is like, you know, most cons, big or small, but
right.
You know, ARC was a good time.
Yeah, I
mean,
usually for those small things, like, you know, the con's enjoyable in and of itself, but you kind of gotta have to do your own thing. So like we went out to like eat at a brewery. I hadn't been to the lab in a while. You know, you mentioned Dover Tea. I think I've been there. This is my 3rd time maybe there in the years that I've been here. So that was kind of fun to revisit with friends and just kind of hanging out with people. That makes it.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, Ryan. Well, it's been a hot minute since you've been on the show. I think it's been since, I want to say, Batman.
I think that's about right, yeah.
Yeah, just let us know what you've been up to.
Well, I've been busy as heck. Like, work has been grilling me, and I've been doing a lot of work in order to get more vacation time so I can go to New York in September, and then I can go to AWA right after I get back from New York. But other than that, I started watching Steven Universe, which even though I heard the fandom is vicious, I actually am enjoying a lot because I'm staying off of Tumblr.
Yeah. It's a good show.
Which it is.
I think the most of that storm is kind of subsided at this point. So
yeah,
I don't think you have anything to worry about.
But I'm enjoying it, and
Cool.
What else am I watching? I'm more playing than anything. I finished Tomb Raider recently, the remake.
The original, like the
No.
PS3 one?
Yeah, the PS3 one.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a good game.
It was really good. I also started playing Octopath Traveler on the Switch, and
yeah.
Nice.
I have a story about that. So, 4th of July, I went to see Marissa, and we went to meet. I went to meet her family, and that was a trip. And I had went out and bought Mario Tennis Aces on the Switch before that because I was like, this actually looks like the N64 one that I love dearly in my heart because it's nostalgic for me, and it was bad, like really, really bad. So
Really?
Yeah, it was
You didn't
awful.
like
I
it?
hated it. No, I couldn't stand it.
I've heard the exact opposite from so many people, so that's interesting that you didn't like it. So
Yeah, no, I
What was
couldn't
your-
stand it.
what was
Like,
your issue with it?
The advanced mechanics ruined the game. Yeah. So I went back to GameStop and I was like, hey, I want to return this game. And they're like, hey, you opened it though, so you can't do that. And I was like, hey, how am I supposed to know if this game is garbage before I open it? And they were like, that's a fair point. So I spoke to one of the managers and they were just like, okay, well, normally we don't do this, but if you want to go and pick out another Switch game of equal or lesser value, we'll exchange it for you. And I was like, all right, I'll go do that. Because I figured there's at least one thing I can find that I want. And it just so happened that Octopath Traveler came out that day, which, if you don't know, is a Square Enix RPG. And I am in love with it. It is so much fun.
I love it.
Man, you really wasted a chance to pick up Skyrim.
You're implying I haven't already.
That's true. Hey, you missed a chance to get another copy of Skyrim.
I already have enough. I can't wait for Skyrim to come out on the TI-84 calculator next, so I can get it on that too.
Hey, that'd be retro, and retro is in. If I know anything about what the kids are into, they like old crap.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I hope to hear more about Octopath Traveler as you play it to see if that's something that I want to pick up, because I'm very hesitant to buy any more video games because I've got so many video games that I haven't played yet. So
I totally get that.
Yeah, I did to your enjoyment, Ryan. I did finally start Persona 5, and I've played I played about 4 hours of it, and I really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. You haven't even begun Mr. Bones' Wild Ride yet.
Oh no, I have not. I have basically gotten through the tutorial palace or whatever.
Yeah.
With the coach guy.
Yeah, Kamoshida.
Like I haven't even met, like, I think the last character I met was On or something. It's like that's at the very beginning of the game. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited to keep playing that game because the aesthetics are just so on point, and that musical soundtrack is just mwah, mwah, delicious.
Yeah. On that topic, one of the next few episodes we'll be recording actually is on the Persona 5 anime, and I'll be mentioning references about the game in that as well because I'm going to be in that one too.
Cool. Yeah, that should be coming up probably in a couple weeks whenever that show wraps up.
Yeah, I got to check the exact date so we can reschedule that one because we actually intended on doing that one tonight, and I was like, no, we're not doing that before the show finishes because if they change anything, I'm going to have thoughts about that.
Of course.
Yeah. But
makes sense.
Yeah, other than that, I've been, rewatching Haruhi for the 12th time in preparation for this.
Excellent.
I don't even know the exact number, but I've watched that show a lot of times.
And on that note, I guess we will transition into the topic of this week's episode, which is, like I said in the beginning of the show, talking about 2006's The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. But real quick before we get into that episode, I just want to remind everyone of our social media presence where you guys can find us. We are available on Facebook at facebook.com/thirdimpactanime. We also recently started a Facebook group, which is the Third Impact Anime Community, and it's actually going pretty well so far. I think that everybody sort of realize that there's a small little tiny community here, mostly of our personal friends and other folks that we've met through like conventions and podcasts and all that stuff. So really excited to see what that little community can build, and I'm very excited for its existence, and I think you guys would agree.
Yeah.
And we're also over on the Twitter at twitter.com/TI_anime, where you can see all of our updates there. And we're trying pretty hard to make sure that we post out there on social media and whatnot pretty regularly to let you guys know what we're all up to. And please, if you have listened to any of our podcasts in the past, or if you're listening to this one now, or if you have attended any of our panels, please pop over to our Facebook page and write us a little review and give us a star rating. That really helps us to know where our strengths are, to know where our weaknesses are, and how we can be a better group overall. So we would really appreciate that feedback, and it is very, very, very appreciated. I guess I already said that. It doesn't matter. All right, so
I should also mention at the time of recording, the group is currently on a binge of anime bingo.
Yes.
So it's a lot of
meme.
fun. It is my favorite meme of 2018 so far, because it's it's so fun to see like all these things. And unfortunately, I have yet to get bingo, because on so many people's, I'm like one away in about 12 different places.
Yeah.
Yes. It's interesting to see if that like one away ends up being like a single show that you just know you haven't seen, but like all of these other people that have.
Oh,
So
it's
just
always
like,
that.
oh, man. Yeah, I love it. It's great to see like
It's literally just building the community through a wholesome meme.
yeah, pretty much like that, and how you can bond with people that are fans, but you don't know exactly like where their fandom is and all that stuff, and how like deep into the rabbit hole they are. So it's neat to see how different that can be, and sort of challenges your expectations of what people out there have seen. So it's pretty awesome. It's a very wholesome meme. So please come into the group, participate, enjoy, have
sure.
fun. Give us your bingo cards. But anyway, we're going to take a quick musical interlude, and when we come back, we will be talking about Haruhi Suzumiya.
デイバイデイうんざりだよねだから堂々と断っちゃう君になりなよ Oh my boy きっぱりしなきゃ嘘に付き合ってられないよ狭い世界で自分で見つけた myself 好きになった当然くだらないやり方
Alright, and we are back from that wonderful song from the show. And Tobias is going to start us off with giving a little bit of background about where the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya came from. So if you want to take it over, Tobias?
Yeah, so the mass media franchise known as Haruhi Suzumiya originated, unlike a lot of the series at the time, it tend to be manga adaptations. This originated as a light novel series. This was started in 2003. It was serialized in a magazine just for light novels called The Sneaker. The magazine was created by Karakawa Shoten, who was putting out a number of light novel series at the time, hold the majority of the market share there. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, the series, was written by Nagaru Tanigawa, with illustrations by Noisy Ito. So Tanigawa is mainly known for the Haruhi novels themselves. He's written a couple other stories, but Haruhi's his main series there. He has written one manga series from 2011 called Amnesia Labyrinth, which did get a US release here by Seven Seas. I think there's just a couple volumes there, but it didn't really take off in the same way Haruhi did. He also co-wrote the script for the original Black Rock Shooter OVA from 2009. As of now,
That's a very interesting OVA. I watched it back in the day, and it it's a strange little thing, but the action choreography was done by Hiroyuki Imaishi from Trigger.
yeah, that's right.
So if you want to see some really stellar action animation, check out like some of the fight scenes from that show, 'cause they're pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember that show for the script, for the actual narrative. Really, just the the fun action scenes there.
Mm-hmm.
But as of now, all of his series are currently on hiatus. The last work he did was a Haruhi short story called Random Numbers, published in 2013. So even then, we haven't really heard of anything in the the Haruhi verse for a so we haven't heard anything in the Haruhi verse for a few years now.
Yeah,
Now,
he said he has like ideas for another book or two, but there's honestly I would not be surprised, and I wouldn't really even complain if we never saw it, because there's a lot.
Yeah,
Like there's more than enough to satisfy you.
yeah, I gotta agree with that. But moving on here, the illustrator for the light novels, because again, light novels tend to be pretty well illustrated in a very manga style to sort of capture this younger audience that loves that that whole aesthetic. The illustrations are provided by Noisy Ito, who previously worked on the art for the Shakugan no Shana light novel series, and of course contributed the character designs to that anime series. She also worked on character design for the 2012 series Another, as well as contributing character design for Concrete Revolution in 2015. Has a couple credits working on adult games at a company called Unison Shift, and most recently just contributed some character design for the Fire Emblem Heroes mobile game.
Are you still playing that, Ryan?
No, I stopped a while ago. Gotcha. I quit all gotcha games recently because I was playing Kingdom Hearts and I bought into like premium, and I like literally hated myself for it, considering my poll was utter garbage, and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a smart man.
Yeah,
Smart
so
man.
I literally just deleted the app Cold Turkey, and I deleted all other gotcha apps I have.
Oof.
Yeah,
I wish I was that brave.
With the market changing all to gacha being the primary format for any game, it's difficult for me to really like playing mobile games anymore. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I stick to Picross mostly now.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's always Tetris.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So moving on here, like I said, these started as light novel series in 2003. It ran through 2011, over 11 volumes. 10 volumes were released here. I should say that the last two were sort of consolidated into one book. Then, of course, in 2006, we get the anime adaptation by Kyoto Animation. So at the time, KyoAni wasn't the powerhouse that we know of them now. They've been around since 1981, with some staff from Osamu Tezuka's Mushi Production, sort of founded their own studio. They mostly did like animation assistance and background painting and just in-between art for a whole heckin' lot of anime series. Like if you find Kyoto Animation's Anime News Network encyclopedia entry, there's a whole list of stuff, and they've worked on a lot. So, for instance, they contributed to Inuyasha, Kimagure Orange Road, and like Nurse Witch Komugi, little OVA series I remember seeing quite some time ago. Early in the early 2000s, they started working on like being the main producer for a few series, starting off with the Full Metal Panic spin-offs, Fumofu and the Second Raid, as well as the whole Air, Canon, all of those visual novel adaptations.
Adaptations of key works, I think.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All those, I mean, I'm going to be honest, all those kind of run together for me. So it's just, there's just that
No,
one
I hear
particular
you.
aesthetic that I kind of compound with each other. So yeah, they kind of got
That
their start.
classic early 2000s Ugu aesthetic.
Yeah, Goku is right. Yeah, so they got their start adapting those, and then Haruhi was one of their first, I'd say, breakout hits. I mean, we'll go into more of the cultural impact of Haruhi, but I think it's really what gave them just the the popularity and the sheer amount of resources to continue doing the other stuff they've done. Of course, after they went on to Lucky Star just about a year later, K-On! A few years after that, and most recently Free and Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, as well as getting into the movie making business with A Silent Voice. And Austin, did you want to say a little bit at this point about their deal?
Yeah. So KyoAni's a very interesting, a very unique studio for many different reasons. One of them is primarily and most obviously is that they are Kyoto Animation, which means that they're based in Kyoto, Japan, rather than Tokyo, where most of the big anime studios are located. So they're kind of outside of that sort of general anime production bubble area. It would be kind of a similar thing of like how most American films are made out in Hollywood. KyoAni would be like, I don't know, Texas or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, kind of bringing it back to like even mentioning Steven Universe earlier. The cool thing about that show is that most of the animators at Cartoon Network are based out of California. But Rebecca Sugar and Ed Jones-Cordy, the creators of Steven Universe, are based out of New York originally, and they moved to California to do the show. And that's one of the influences you see in that production is how, like, in general, they come from a different scene, a different school of thought.
Huh. Yeah, like there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but typically when a lot of media is made like in the same geographical area by like the same people that have been there for a long time, there ends up with this sort of bubble mentality, where everybody sort of has the same approach, the same like quote unquote conventional wisdom about certain things, and that's a lot of what you see in anime because so much of it is made in Tokyo. But with KyoAni, being in an older town, which Kyoto is like the ancient capital of Japan. It's still very metropolitan, but it's not as metropolitan as Tokyo. So it just has a different vibe about it, and I'm sure some of that bleeds into KyoAni in probably ways that we as very, very removed American fans may not necessarily notice, but we can definitely see that there is something unique and different about the KyoAni style compared to sort of the other sort of boxed sort of canned light novel anime that comes out in the same sort of like slice of life or like school comedy, school drama stuff that you see from other studios, for instance. Another thing that is unique about KyoAni is that while most animators working in the Japanese animation industry are paid by the frame, KyoAni's staff is actually salaried, which is very unique.
Wow.
Most of the time, people have this like common misconception that budget is what makes for quality anime. That's not necessarily the case, because even if you watch some of KyoAni's more, I will say, not as good works, stuff like, I don't know, Myriad Colors Phantom World from a couple years ago, like it still looks incredibly nice. And they are sort of working off of very modest budgets. They're not working on like ridiculously high sums of money to make their products. They just have a very dedicated staff that doesn't have to sort of live in fear of them not being able to pay rent or eat, because the studio treats them well, that they can take more time and effort to work on their craft. And that's the same thing with the big wigs at the studio as well. Like, since it's a very small studio, there's only about 6 in-house directors, and they pretty much direct everything at the show. Like, those 6 individuals have directed the majority of stuff that KyoAni has made since their sort of Haruhi days, and a little bit before, back with Full Metal Panic and whatnot. A significant portion of those 6 individuals that are the directors are women. For example, Naoka Yamada is a pretty prolific female director these days in anime. She was the director of both seasons of K-On! And the movie. She directed Tomoko Market, and I think that was her original concept as well, and she also directed A Silent Voice. So she's pretty prolific, and I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but another female director that works there directed Free and all of the movies associated with that. So there's a lot of interesting and unique things about KyoAni that sort of set it apart from other studios.
Yeah, they like a lot of those shows that we listed, like they're all really good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they produce quality work pretty much 9 times out of 10. Even if it's not for me, I can acknowledge that it's like well done.
Definitely. Like, they definitely have that like quote unquote KyoAni style, whatever it is that means, and that doesn't appeal to everyone, but like I don't I don't think you could make the argument that what they make is not quality. It might not be what you're into, but it's really quality stuff.
What do you mean? You didn't like Myriad Colors Phantom World?
I mean, it wasn't.
You didn't like Ghost Limbo? Come on, how can you not like that?
Okay, listen, it wasn't stupid enough. Okay,
I don't know, man. It was pretty damn dumb.
it was too smart for me.
I never thought I'd be hearing that about that show, but here we are in Hell World 2018. So to kind of push on in here, the anime adaptation for Haruhi, we mentioned Kyoto being the production studio. The series director was Tatsuya Ishihara, who directed, like I said, the early visual novel adaptations, Air/Canon/Canud. Again, is there really a difference between these? I don't think so. But then later would go on to direct Nichijou, Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions, and Sound Euphonium.
Nichijou is clearly when he had a drug problem.
Well, I mean, it was an adaptation by Rawi Keiichi, and he is like reading, just both like reading or watching Nichijou and now reading City. He's got a very interesting mindset about things.
So is Helvetica Standard a different work?
I don't really know. Honestly, you can buy it separate, the manga separate, at least the vertical release. So I'm gonna think so.
Okay.
It definitely has a different style than Nichijou.
I know that that's referenced in Nichijou a ton, but I didn't realize that it was like something on its own. I thought it was just like a small like bit thing in Nichijou. Then I saw it like for sale on its own on the shelves. So, what do I know?
I don't think anybody knows anything about his works.
Yeah.
Cool.
They are an enigma wrapped in a mystery.
And lastly, we'll talk about the plot itself in a second, but the last notable thing I feel like with the original anime release was that the show was originally broadcast in a non-chronological order, with the first episode being the infamous movie that they make, and then moving into a more linear fashion, and then the show kind of jumps all over the place for season 1. And then later, when season 2 came out in 2009, they originally they started re-airing the first season. It was found out that the run was going to be the full 28 or so episodes, rather than the 13 or 14 that would have comprised season 1. So people were assuming that season 2 was going to air right after season 1, as would make sense for most of our anime series. But rather, they aired the entire series, both seasons 1 and 2, in a full chronological order. So season 2, alongside the infamous Endless 8, all aired right in the smack dab in the middle of season 1, or what we would think of as season 1, but being released all in chronological order. The release we would get here in America starting in 2007 with, I believe, Aniplex or Bandai bringing that over here.
It was Bandai.
Right. The original release with a collector's edition with the English dub, they had in chronological order on the disc. There was also a sub-only broadcast order version, standard edition, released at the same time. Very interesting, asynchronous release with that.
Yeah, the broadcast order, I've watched it both ways, and I do not enjoy the original broadcast order because it's weird. Like,
I will unfortunately say that at least as Haruhi is currently available on streaming, it is listed in broadcast order, which I think is very unfortunate because that's how I ended up rewatching it for this time around, and I can agree with you, Ryan. It's no, wait, just kidding. It's released in chronological.
Yes. So if I was gonna talk about that a little later, but if we want to go ahead, I mean, you can't.
Well, we can come back to that and talk about that a little bit more after we discuss what the actual story is about, because then once we give that context, it can make sense as to why there are significant differences between the two.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so before we get there, we want to do a quick cast breakdown to let you guys know what actors are featured in the dubs for this show. So we're going to go through the Japanese voice cast and the English voice cast, and some of these individuals I was very surprised to see. So we'll just go ahead and get started right here. So we have As Gion in Japanese, we have Tomokazu Sugita, who was a 2008 Society for the Promotion of Japanese Animation Award winner for Best Actor for his performance as Gion. He would also play Gintoki in Gintama, the main character, young Joseph Joestar in 2012's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Yusuke in Persona 5. So in English, Gion is played by Crispin Freeman, who is most well known as playing Alucard in Hellsing. He's also Shizuo in Durarara, Togusa in Ghost in the Shell, and Winston in Overwatch.
Don't forget Itachi in Naruto.
Oh, that's also true. I just didn't put that in there. But yeah, you're right. I did read that as well.
Yeah.
So playing Haruhi herself in Japanese, we have Aya Hirano, who also played Misa Amane in Death Note, Konata in Lucky Star. This will come up a couple more times with the Lucky Star connection. Dende in Dragon Ball Z Kai and Dragon Ball Z Super, and Lucy Heartfilia in Fairy Tail. I'm not sure if she played Lucy throughout the entire run, because I know that she had some health problems, but I know that she did originally start out playing Lucy in Fairy Tail. In English, Haruhi is played by Wendy Lee, who is a very, very old school voice actress who's been in the industry all the way from basically the beginning with Robotech back in the day. And she probably most iconically played Faye Valentine in Cowboy Bebop. She's also Kanata in Lucky Star, and Queen Serenity in the new English dub of Sailor Moon from Viz that started releasing a couple of years ago. So as Mikuru, we have Yuko Goto in Japanese, who plays Hiro in Hidamari Sketch, Ayano in Lucky Star, Madoka's baby brother in Madoka Magica, and she is a big fan of motorcycles, and that is very uncharacteristic of her because she is most known for playing like weird, well, not weird, but like cute moe characters, so it's cool that she's into bikes. It's kind of neat. In English, Mikuru is played by Stephanie Shea, who is in a billion things. No doubt you've come across Stephanie Shea at some point if you watch anime in English. She's in a ton of stuff. She is Orihime in Bleach. She is Hinata in Naruto. She is Mamimi in Fulikuli. She's Yui in K-On! She's Usagi in The New Sailor Moon. She's Mitsuha in Your Name. And she's also a pretty prolific ADR director. She works pretty often on the G-Kids English dubs of their anime films from the past couple of years. And they also do ADR production for some of the other foreign films as well. And she works pretty closely with Michael Sinterniklaas, who is also another fellow voice actor who founded the studio NYAV Post, which is the company that does a lot of those dubs that G-Kids outsources their production work to. And she's done the ADR for ADR directing rather for Your Name and Lou Over the Wall, I know for sure. And I think she worked on Welcome to the Space Show as well, and a couple more things. So if it's from G-Kids and it's anime, she probably worked on it in some way or another. So as Koizumi in Japanese, we have Daisuke Ono, who is a very, very popular, very prolific Japanese voice actor. He has won multiple Seiyu awards. Again, he's kind of like Stephanie Shea. Like, if you've been watching anime in the past, 10 years or so, you've probably come across him. He is Sebastian in Black Butler. He's Jotaro in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
What?
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Isn't that weird?
Just imagine Jotaro, in a North High School, green jacket. Or imagine Koizumi,
right?
in the Bancho outfit.
Yeah.
Koizumi just uses his Esper powers to summon Star Platinum.
Well, yeah, Star Platinum would be Gion.
Probably, yeah. Oh my lord, could you imagine? Yeah, he's also Shizuo in Durarara, which is funny because Crispin Freeman was Shizuo, but he played Gion. But never mind, whatever. Daisuke Ono he's also Erwin in Attack on Titan, and this one's for you, Ryan. He is Nightwing in Batman Ninja.
Oh, nice.
Yup.
Which he says 3 things, but whatever, he's in it.
Yeah.
So as Koizumi in English, we have Johnny Young Bosch, another very popular English voice actor. He played Lelouch in Code Geass, Ichigo in Bleach, Vash the Stampede in Trigun. He's also Kaneda in the 2004 dub of Akira. He was actually at ARC this weekend, so I got to meet him and get his autograph. He's a pretty pleasant dude.
Yeah, I remember him at Triad a couple years ago as well.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. So if you ever get a chance to meet him, don't be afraid. He's cool.
He was the Black Ranger too. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think he was the Black Ranger in one thing, and then he was also the Green Ranger in another thing.
I don't know.
I
I just remember seeing him as Black Ranger as a kid.
Okay, Power Rangers something.
Yeah.
So as Yuki Nagato in Japanese, we have Minori Chihara. She has worked for KyoAni on a bunch of different projects after Haruhi Suzumiya. She played Mitsuki in Beyond the Boundary. She's Kaori in Sound Euphonium, and she is most recently Erika in Violet Evergarden. As Yuki in English is Michelle Ruff. She's probably most known for being the most frequent and probably most well-recognized voice of Fujiko Mine in the Lupin the Third dub. Where people would mostly know her from would be from the Genion dub of the Red Jacket series that aired on Toonami, and that dub is still out there and available. It's on Crunchyroll as well. Even though they didn't get through the complete series of that, they dubbed a lot of it. She also returned to the Fujiko Mine TV series to play Fujiko there as well. She also played Yoko in Gurren Lagann. She is Anri in Durarara, and she is Luna in the new Viz dub of Sailor Moon.
You kind of skipped over who acts Shami, who voice acts Shami-san.
Oh my god.
I did not grab that.
Not important.
It is important. It's probably Hideaki Anno.
Probably.
He does all the cats.
Yeah. Otto himself probably.
That's a good question. I really want to know now.
Say I've got it pulled up. Japanese Kenichi Ogata, who he played. Is this the main guy in My Love Story? No, that's different. Never mind. What am I talking about?
He is the Japanese voice actor of Brain from Pinky and the Brain.
Oh my god.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
He's
kind of a total shift
Miyoga.
there.
He's Miyoga in Inuyasha.
He's one of the cats in She's Sweet Home.
Nice.
Which makes a lot of sense.
He's in Sergeant Frog.
Detective Conan. He's in a lot of those movies.
He's the one old man hero in My Hero Academia, Gran Torino. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was that character's name.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. Shami-san is Gran Torino.
Hilarious.
I'm pretty sure it's a
Lord.
reference to Clint Eastwood, but I'm not entirely certain. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Probably so. Or the car, because I know that's what that name comes from.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. He's Steve Kramer and Michael McConaughey.
Michael McConaughey?
No, not that one.
Oh.
I'm sure he gets that a lot. I know Michael McConaughey is the guy that played Charles Britannia in Code Geass.
He also plays Berserker in the Fate movies.
Oh,
nice. So he just growls a lot?
just like Shami-san.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah.
Perfect. That'll be $10 million.
Yes. Expensive cat.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. So do you want to just give us a general breakdown about what the heck Haruhi Suzumiya is even about?
Yeah. So it at first glance it seems like your ordinary run-of-the-mill slice of life, and you're introduced to Gion, who's pretty much like the most cynical 14-year-old you'll ever meet. And he meets Haruhi, who is the entire polar opposite of him. She's a very eccentric girl who's obsessed with the supernatural, specifically with aliens, time travelers, and espers, or in case you don't know that term, it's like magical creatures. And he somehow gets roped into helping her establish her own club when she realizes she doesn't like any of the clubs at the school after trying out for all of them and being good at all of them. So they form the SOS Brigade, which stands for Spreading Excitement Over the World with Haruhi Suzumiya Brigade, and it's shortened to SOS. And Haruhi later recruits 3 of the additional members, being Yuki Nagato, the shy, the bookworm who doesn't really talk much, the timid Moe Mikuru Asahina, who is best girl, and the mysterious transfer student Itsuki Koizumi. And it just so happens that each of those are revealed to be an alien, a time traveler, and an esper. Although I would tend to argue that Nagato's not really an alien, more of like a robot.
They kind of use it interchangeably. Like, Gion refers to her as an alien, but she establishes herself as a robot, so robot alien.
Yeah. But, like, the funny thing is, Gion knows this, Haruhi has no idea. So, they all reveal to Gion that Haruhi is actually some, like, really high-powered godlike entity who has the power to shape reality at her whim. And they're all part of various organizations that want to observe her and or control her, which they don't really get into in the show, actually. And the show follows their misadventures together, and all of the weird things that happen, Haruhi has no idea that they're happening at all, which is hilarious, but it also makes her really annoyed sometimes. But yeah, that's a fairly brief synopsis of it. It's a lot of fun. The show's broken up into multiple arcs. I think the show follows up through part of the Psy. That's one of the light novels. It covers 4 of them. But yeah, that's a brief synopsis. So, if we want to jump into what we thought of it, we can do that now.
Cool. Real quick, I just wanted to go around the table and just so Ryan, since this is a series that means a lot to you. You're a really big fan of it. How did you first find yourself watching Haruhi Suzumiya, and what did you think of it the first time you watched it? Okay,
so here's my story with Haruhi, and here's why it's so important to me. I was like severely depressed one year due to, life happenings, and I was sitting in my chair at college, being depressed, and one of my friends recommended watching Haruhi because it was his favorite show, and he was like, yeah, you probably really like it. So I decided, what the heck, I'll look it up. And I couldn't find it on streaming because it was not licensed at the time. So the first time I watched Haruhi, I watched it on a YouTube channel that had the entire series. And so
is this like circa 2013 or so?
Yeah, that's exactly when it was, actually.
Okay, cool, gotcha.
Yeah. So I watched it all on YouTube, and I absolutely loved it. I watched the entire thing and then the disappearance in about a week.
Yeah.
And I had gone into Anime Club at NC State that Monday, gotten the idea to watch it, and I came back the following Monday. He was like, how do you like the show? And I was like, yeah, I'm done. And he was like, what? And he asked me, he's like, the first thing he asked me is like, did you watch all of the Endless Eight? And I said, yes. And he went, good. So,
oof.
Yeah,
so that show, I would argue with him on his definition of good, but carry on.
I actually agree with him, but I'll get to that later when we actually specifically talk about that monstrosity. So, like, that show got me out of my funk for, like, the first time in, like, a couple months. So I really like it for that reason. But it's just a lot of fun. And there's a ton of material for it, which I always like when I find a show that I like. Even if I can't watch it, I can read it. I can, play it. And, yeah. So it just resonated with me. And I'm normally not the biggest fan of slice of lifes, but this one's not your ordinary slice of life.
For sure.
So, Tobias, how did you first come across Haruhi?
So, I watched it as it was coming out. Right when maybe an episode or 2 was out, I kind of discovered it on the internet, as you do. I downloaded the first episode, which is the movie, the like horrible quality movie episode, and as most people at the time, I kind of wondered if I downloaded the wrong thing, because it is not what it, for all the hype that it was getting, I didn't understand it. But once I realized a few episodes in what they were doing, at that point I was really enjoying it. I introduced a good friend of mine at the time. I was pretty much just in college. A friend of mine I had met at Anime Club that was, we kind of connected really quickly. I showed him this, and he also really, really enjoyed it. A whole lot more than me at the time, to the point where he kind of identified as Haruhi for a little bit. We at that point, our Anime Club was like one era of Anime Club was fading, so we kind of took it over in a SOS Brigade style takeover. where like we had like the armbands made up. Like we went in there and had that whole like I think when he was Haruhi and I was pretty much his foil, his Gion character. I had to like make sure he wasn't over the top and we could actually get stuff done. So yeah, Haruhi is pretty important for me as well. At that point, we all watched it. We all really enjoyed it. We we were downloading the episodes as they came out, old school style. And a few years later, season 2 came out, and at that point, I just didn't keep up. I heard about what the Endless Eight was doing, and it didn't really inspire me to watch it. Later, the movie came out, and we watched that together. Just like we had done back then, we found an old fan sub of it, watched it then, and were completely blown away and reinvigorated by this. But yeah, and, like seeing the whole life cycle of the Haruhiism boom, with the original everyone going crazy for this series, going to conventions and seeing everyone do that dance and the cosplay, and then seeing it fizzle out was in and of itself a really interesting experience.
Yeah, it's kind of its own little like water cycle there, because it was so hot and then went so down and then went so hot again in a angry way, and then went back down and then went back up in a really like, oh my gosh, this movie is so good kind of way. Yeah. And then now it's pretty quiet.
It's been quiet for a while, but we've had like a couple small things, mostly like spin-off media though.
As for myself, I knew about Haruhi back in high school. I was hearing about Haruhi back whenever I was first like really getting into anime around like 2007, 2008 and whatnot, because that's the first time I watched like Bleach and Gurren Lagann and things like that. So back in my early high school days. And another member of Third Impact, Sarah, we went to high school together, and she was really into Haruhi at the time, but I didn't really get into it other than sort of in the very basic level of like, oh, I can recognize these characters. I know sort of what Haruhi is about. Like, I've seen this dance, I've seen like AMVs with like the Haruhi music and all that stuff. So I was kind of a bubble on the side of the bubble of Haruhi, and if you want to put it that way. It wasn't until probably a couple of summers later where like I finally like told myself, it's like, all right, I'm gonna give the show a chance. I'm gonna see if it's any good. So I downloaded a torrent of it, because again, this was like right after Bandai went out, so it wasn't available anywhere. So I downloaded that torrent. I watched it on a road trip. I watched like maybe 6 or 7 episodes of it. Watched it then. I sort of enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I was definitely not bored by it by any means. I think that's one thing that this show is not, which is boring, except for the Endless Eight, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it. I liked Gion a whole lot. Like, he was definitely like what kept me going with this show, and I think to a degree he's what's kept me going throughout the rest of it, because I didn't revisit season 2 or the movie until this podcast episode. Like, I watched season 1 way back a long time ago and just sort of dropped the series after that, because I was like, you know what, I know that the Endless Eight is ahead of me, and I didn't really care enough about the story or the characters to really push through that. So I kind of just dropped it. Like, I watched like that first 2 episodes of the Endless Eight like 3 years after I finished it. I'm like, yeah, there was a reason why I didn't finish up this show a couple years earlier. So I never did until this podcast episode. So I finally finished up season 2, watched all of the Endless Eight. You're welcome, Ryan.
Yeah.
And then watched that movie, because that movie is freaking great.
Well, you say you watched the Endless Eight. Did you watch the episodes after the Endless Eight?
Yeah, like I've seen the whole thing now.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the whole show. I think so the torrent that I got was also in chronological order, so that's how I watched it. Yeah. So I've never watched it in broadcast order, but like reading about it, I kind of understand why that's so much better. And just thinking about it after having finished up the show in chronological order, I can definitely see that, yeah, probably broadcast order is better in pretty much every context. And again, we're going to talk about exactly what that means, because Ryan, you can probably explain that a little bit better than I could.
Well,
But
you think broadcast order is better, and I definitely don't. So,
Yeah.
really? You think chronological is better?
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I'm the one that's all stand for broadcast.
Okay, so
Do we want to talk about our reasons? Go ahead. We're already kind of talking about it. So do we want to talk about it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
probably should. But like I was saying, like so I knew about it in the past, but only recently got like finished up with my Haruhi experience, like for this podcast, and I will explain my reactions in due time. So go ahead, Ryan, and walk us through exactly what this weird, stupid broadcast chronological order bumbo jumbo is.
All right, so there's two orders to the show. There's the broadcast order and the chronological order. The original broadcast order broadcasted episode 1 of Melancholy, then I think one of the episodes of the Island arc, then episode 2 of the Melancholy, and it broke up the Melancholy arc over like pretty much the entire first season.
I mean, it started with the movie they made, and that sort of gets you interested in it. Then it shows the first 2 episodes of the Melancholy, the origin story. It kind of just gives you a taste of what's going on. I think it ends with the part where Yuki gets Gion in her house and tells him that something's amiss. And before we can fully explain it, it breaks over to the baseball game, where and the baseball game is one of the later episodes chronologically. It takes place after the closed space incident with Gion and Haruhi. So all our characters know what's going on, but we don't really.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes back over until we get the final episode of the Melancholy, one with Itsuki and the resolution of the closed space incident. That happens near the end of the series, the last few episodes.
Correct. So the broadcast order, it starts with the Adventures of Mikuru Asahina, which was the home movie they made. Then it's Melancholy 1 and 2, then it's the Boredom, then it's Melancholy 3, then it's the Island, it's the Mysterious Sign, then it's the Island again, then it's Someday in the Rain, which is the last episode in chronological order. And then Melancholy again, then Day of Sagittarius, then Live Alive, then Melancholy and Melancholy. So it's very, very random, but
having Someday in the Rain as the lead-in to the movie makes sense. It just makes for such a bad ending to the show.
I totally agree with that, and it is one of the 2 blemishes on this show that I feel like it was really bad. But then after that, it was like fantastic because everybody loves the movie.
The movie is quite good, and I just personally I think it's a shame, especially in thinking about Haruhi from like a 2018 perspective. Like, that movie really is something that I think is very special, and it's very resonant. It has a lot of really, really amazing scenes and some great character moments and some really good animation. I just think it's such a shame that it's sort of hidden behind this wall of the series, which is so like. Either way, whatever way that you decide to watch Haruhi, I think it's still such a fractured series in of itself because of just some of the decisions that were made, that it's a lot to ask for someone like in 2018 to make that plunge just so that they can watch a really good movie.
I mean, I don't think it's that big of a commitment, honestly. Sort of coming at it from the opposite angle, I vastly prefer broadcast order because even though it's all just kind of skips over the place, I feel like when we look at the actual filmography happening and the composition of the scenes, it makes more sense than broadcast order. Like, we get introduced to like the weird movie that it's weird, but we find out we know pretty early on, based on Kyone's narration, that it's very tongue-in-cheek. The first episode ends with that camera angle where it shows our characters, it shows that it like wraps around Haruhi, and like there's a very dramatic introduction to her, and then we get introduction to who these characters are with the first 2 Melancholy arcs, and then I think you're meant to be confused by the things happening, because we already know that like Nagato's not who she seems initially. There are things that are going on. We start to piece together that Mikuru is also different, and at that point, like, Koizumi shows up in the baseball episode, and we don't even know who he is yet. And honestly, I feel like that combined with the first episode being the movie, that's what really makes Haruhi interesting. Is that, like you said, when you go into the beginning, it shows up as a normal slice of life show. I mean, sure, she's a little wonky, and sure, like, these characters show up that are wonky. But what really makes Haruhi stand out, and what really hooked a lot of us back when it first came out, was how just strange. It didn't really, it played with your expectations, I think, with the original home movie and with the weird jumping around chronologically. You kind of had to play it by ear. We see the baseball episode, we know that, Yuki's hacking the baseball bat. We see them kind of look. We see them look at each other when Haruhi does things. There's a point where she pulls up Mikuru's hair as a cheerleader, and she looks at Gion really like with an angry face because we see later that he likes ponytails, and she knows he likes ponytails, and it's little things like that that make you kind of like wonder why. But personally, I'm a fan of media that goes non-chronologically. Pulp Fiction is still my favorite movie of all time, and I think like watching Haruhi in chronological order is like if you were to tell me to watch Pulp Fiction in chronological order. It may make more sense if you're not really good at following separate stories, but as a piece of cinema, it would ruin the movie for me. Likewise, this, and I feel like so. The whole non-chronological aspect of season one really made Haruhi stand out, and everyone likes to rag on Endless Eight, but with a series like Haruhi and his pedigree, doing something very weird for season two was pretty much accepted. And even though I can't really watch all eight episodes of Endless Eight, really, without doing something else. I really appreciate the sheer audacity of them doing that. And I think that makes it stand out for me. At the end of season two, we get the production of the movie. I like the fact that we see a lot of these conflicts happening between our weird characters. They are very obviously not on the same page, and there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes there that we see in the whole movie itself. Like there's a little references, I guess, conflicts that happen. So I feel like that makes it work as season two, and I appreciate each season as being weird because of that.
I got you.
I want to add a clarification to what I said a moment ago. Whenever I said fractured, I meant that this show has a large barrier of entry in the fact that all of that stuff has to be explained to someone that does not otherwise know, and that would be any fan that is approaching it for the first time in 2018. Because like the way that Haruhi is made available right now, it is listed in a specific way, which is in chronological order. So that's how most people are going to approach it, whereas, at least in your opinion, Tobias, and I'm more inclined to agree with you, that broadcast is like the superior way to absorb the story. I think that kind of can be intimidating for someone who could so much more easily just watch something else that is so much more easier to consume. I'm definitely pandering to the laziness that I expect people to have, but most of the time it's been my experience that if people are going or have the option to be lazy, they're going to be.
So I'm not
saying that that's right, but it's just kind of the way that it is. But please disagree with me.
Well, I'm going to cut you because you kind of cut off. I don't know if it's my internet, but you kind of cut off. Did he do the same thing to you, or did you hear everything he said?
He's fine.
Okay. Kind of sum up. What was your main argument?
So it was basically like the idea of like the fact that this show has those different ways of watching it, and that one, at least in your opinion, and I'm inclined to agree with you, is more superior than the other. That's not the way that the show is presented to the general anime viewing audience here in 2018. So I think that that's just a lot to ask people to do, and a lot of like third-party investigation they're going to have to do to even think about starting to watch this show, because like the way that it's made available to us is in an order that, at least to you and to myself, is inferior.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of I wish there were more of an option available because when I sat down to watch this, I went on Verve, I went on Crunchyroll, and both are only one option presentable. So I actually dug out an old fan sub that I had on my hard drive since forever ago. It turns out also that those are in chronological order. So I sat there with Wikipedia open because because I'm I'm a crunchy old man and I cannot watch it in I guess chronological order. So I sat down with that. I actually skipped around a little bit. I didn't watch the entire first season, but I've got the main bits. But yeah, I don't understand why it's not an option for people who want to watch it like that.
Ryan, you've got the Blu-ray. So does the Blu-ray do anything with that at all?
Yes.
Wonderful.
The Blu-ray gives both.
Awesome.
So how does that work, like, on disc? Is there, like, a menu where you can select the episodes and they're, like, listed, or...
I actually don't know because I didn't use the Blu-ray for this viewing because I ripped the episodes when I got the Blu-ray.
Okay.
So I used them on Kodi, which is on my television. So I didn't use the Blu-ray itself. So I don't know, but in the slipcover, it directly explains, like, here's the ways to watch Haruhi. The chronological order, which is the order that is on the Blu-rays, or Gion then Haruhi, which is, like, the way the broadcast order is broken up.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Japanese. There's a disc specifically for the Japanese dub. The Japanese dub that is in original broadcast order.
Cool. That is very, very nice that Funimation would do that because, like Tobias outlined earlier, the original Bandai release was a little bit even more unintuitive, and knowing just how pricing and all that stuff was back in the day, like if you wanted the quote-unquote full Haruhi experience, you would probably have to buy it like twice, like the special edition Japanese dub version and then the English version, which they probably didn't even make the distinction on the original DVDs.
Probably not, no, because they didn't really care back then. But Haruhi's one of those that, like, especially among the community, it gets debated all the time. Like, it should be noted, actually, like, I'm on Reddit and I subscribe to the Haruhi Reddit because I'm filthy like that. In 2017 there was a rewatch going on, and it actually got voted to be rewatched in the broadcast order by a 1% difference.
Oh wow.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was that close. So yeah, it's heavily debated, but yeah, the Blu-ray does make it easy. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it mostly. Like, I definitely prefer chronological order, but I definitely see the value of broadcast. But watching it broadcast, like, what did you guys think of the show in general?
Yeah, go ahead, Tobias, because you probably had a more stronger attachment to it from the past, and I'm interested to see if your feelings are, like, still the same.
Oh yeah, for me it was very similar to our initial fandom of, like, Gurren Lagann, which we also watched as it was coming out, and it was a big deal for my college anime club group. We got into it. It was a very interesting experience because it was so different. It's really easy now to think about how overdone Slice of Life is and the visual novel adaptations and how samey they are. But really, this kind of started that boom, to be honest, in a lot of ways. So this was fresh in its own way. So that freshness really sort of sustained us. It's a really funny show. There's a lot of funny references. I think the Island episode and that extended Phoenix Wright parody, still something I remember to this day. Yeah, so overall, I really enjoyed this show. When I was rewatching it here just for the podcast, I found that I really enjoyed the original series as much as I did back then. I was kind of expecting myself to wane on it, but no, it's still a really enjoyable watch. I found the characters, even Haruhi herself, fairly relatable as far as anime characters are concerned. Really enjoyed it. The movie was still really fantastic. I felt like really great way to cap off the anime adaptation itself, even though we still don't have a really ending to the story per se. Like Ryan said earlier, if that's the last we see of this series, I'll be content.
Same.
Cool. What about you, Ryan? Because you kind of outlined a little bit about that already, but, like, as a show, like, how do you feel about Haruhi?
It's a great slice of life show. It's definitely fresh. It doesn't follow the same formula that most of them do, so I can definitely appreciate it for that. And it has fun, and like Tobias mentioned, it parodies Phoenix Wright at one point, and it's just, it doesn't take itself too seriously, while at the same time it does at points. Like the Endless Eight is a very serious arc with a very serious tone that you like can actually feel, but like the entire arc where they make a home movie, that's a thing. So it's a perfect balance, and it's like, it's so well done. Like the actors all do a fantastic job of conveying the emotion of characters, and as somebody who's read all of the light novels and most of the manga, like they did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I generally agree with both you guys, even though I think that the show has some flaws in it that I can't really get around, that are definitely there, beyond sort of the viewing method issues, that's kind of a totally different thing. I try not to evaluate the show too much based on that. I try and evaluate it more based on like the individual episodes and like the general story overall. I think that one of the things that makes this show really, really good is that it has just such an absolutely fantastic and very down-to-earth and relatable narrator. Like Gion, for all of his, faults and all of his, sort of attitudes towards things and how he can be kind of a downer sometimes, he's still such a genuine person, and like still he's very good person, but he's just very down to earth at the same time. He's just a normal guy. And I think that that's what's really great about Gion, because I feel like if we didn't have Kion's narrative voice in this show, I feel like it would be extremely weak in terms of like the specific events and actions that take place in this show, because that's not really what the star is. It's definitely the characters here, and Gion is definitely the star. Like Haruhi Suzumiya may have her name in the title, but this is really the Gion. Like it could be called Gion's dealing with Haruhi Suzumiya, and that would be just a fine title.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think there are some jokes in the franchise that go on a little bit too often, especially one in particular that I don't think ages very well at all, and that's like Haruhi always like putting Mikuru in very, very compromising situations.
Yeah, that did not age well.
Yeah.
No, it was weird then. We just probably didn't perceive it. It's weird now too, and she just, like, the constant abuse that character sort of has to undergo, like even just like the little things, she's just so just beat up on this whole show. I mean, you kind of get why she tolerates it, because of the whole like alien stuff, and she doesn't want to upset Haruhi because she could destroy reality and all that stuff, but it's just not like, those moments are not entertaining for me to sit through.
I think there was one line that I really, really liked really early on in the show, when I think Haruhi first gets the costume for her, when Gion watches her walk away and he's like, she has the back that looks just like a person who didn't get into graduate school or just bought their first house. It's just like so relatable. Like, oh man, it's so sad, but it's so true.
That's funny.
That's the thing about Gion also. He's 14 and he knows he knows how it feels to like not get into graduate school, and I'm just like, dude, you were an old man.
Yeah, like he doesn't seem like a 14-year-old. He seems very, wise and intuitive beyond his age.
The other thing about that though is like he's narrating pretty much as if he's like telling his kids this story. Yeah. So it literally could be Gion is an old man talking about this.
Yeah. And to kind of add on to that point there, when we see a lot of these shows that are kind of moe and, harem-esque, like this show can be, our main male character, usually tends to be this everyman kind of guy, and he turns out to be pretty blank in a lot of these series. Yep. But Gion is definitely not blank. He has his own personality. He's very quippy. He's very snarky. And yeah, like I feel like that helps serve him as a foil to Haruhi in ways that you don't see in a lot of these shows.
No, you really don't. Like a lot of people, rightfully so, are like the main light novel male protagonist is sort of like the worst possible character you could think of, and he's just so boring and terrible, and that's sort of what the standard is. But like Gion is not that. If anything, he is like the best example of like how to do a light novel male lead the right way.
I think it actually helps that it's not that Gion is an anime character. He is a light novel character that's adapted, so he's written well from the get-go. Right.
And I'm really glad that they decided to carry over his voice into the show, because like I said, if the anime series adaptation that we got was just sort of them trying to explain in like visually and in action what Gion is thinking, I think that would have been a much more difficult task, and it would have made the show a lot different in a bad way. And I think the fact that Kion's narrative voice is so strong, like I haven't read the original light novels, but I can assume that the strength that we see in the anime is the same strength that we see in the novels.
The novels honestly do it better, but that's because, you know, it's a novel, they have more opportunity to.
Right, of course. But I'm just glad that they made that decision to give him that narrative voice, because it really does carry the show for me. Like that's its saving grace for me, because I liked it. I didn't love it, but Gion is what made me he's what will make me think back on this show with positive things.
Gotcha. And yeah, about the light novels, actually, there's a few things that are like super different about it. They're a lot less censored than the show, because obviously you can't put certain things on like a syndicated broadcast. And he also explicitly despises Koizumi in the light novels. Like during the Endless Eight in particular, there's a scene where Koizumi is riding on a bike with Mikuru, and he's describing in graphic detail how much he wanted to punch Koizumi's face. And I'm just
Gion?
like, yeah.
Oh,
like
man.
He hates Koizumi in the light novels.
I'm glad that they didn't go that way, because that would have felt too like weird rivalry thing, and
they kind of did, but it wasn't as bad.
No, that's right. They definitely did that, but the relationship between Gion and Koizumi in this show is another thing that I really enjoyed, because they seemed like not quite friends, but a little bit closer than coworkers.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting relationship dynamic that they had. Same with him and Nagato as well. It was a very similar thing, even though they were kind of closer because they worked together to solve problems more often.
The most interesting, one of my favorite things of the light novel, the arc that I definitely prefer in the light novel over the show, is the island arc, because there's a scene where they all are partying and get super drunk. And it's like very heavily implied that Gion and Haruhi have sex. Like, not explicitly said, but like Mikuru mentions something the next morning that's like kind of implying they may have, and you're just like, oh, so this is a lot more adult than the show is.
Yeah, a little bit glad that didn't make it in there too. So
yeah,
I mean, teenagers do wacky things, so it wouldn't be necessarily impossible. It just kind of
it would have felt out of character in the show.
Yeah,
it would have.
I mean, I kind of enjoyed the whole will they won't they sort of aspect to that. I mean, because he Koen has a little bit of interest in the other girls as well. And
he has a massive interest in Mikuru.
Yeah, I mean, that's and it seemed very mutual from their interactions.
Yeah.
But even like later and in the movie, we see maybe a possibility of Nagato, but it's very much a sort of, I don't know, like a harem type, spoiled for choice there. But even though we know that, I guess if you want to go into shipping terms, he and Haruhi are going to be at the end of the day.
Yeah, he pretty much gets shipped with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the drinking thing, and that was another thing that just made me just really very uncomfortable, is whenever they're shooting the movie and Haruhi has that other girl like get Mikuru wasted to do that kissing scene. I'm like, oh god, please. I really wanted to turn off this whole show, because that was just unfortunate and stupid. But
yeah. And you could see how like annoyed Gion was getting at her at that point.
Yeah, and that's kind of was what the saving grace behind that whole like little tiny plot thread was that Gion just got so like rightfully upset at that, and I'm like, excellent. So Gion is being the voice of reason, the voice of the audience here, and that made me very happy about how angry he got, even though he probably should not hit Haruhi, and I'm glad that he didn't, because if he did, that also wouldn't have been good. So yeah. I'm glad that they did that in that direction.
Yeah, the stuff with Mikuru is very fan servicey in a lot of ways, but
it is, and it's really unfortunate because I could see how a lot of people wouldn't be into that, myself included, especially the way that they do it, because so much of it is just her being, pulled and prodded in various ways that she, is very obviously uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
But I mean, the show's not just that. I don't want to feel like I'm focusing too much on that, but it's definitely there. The show is obviously not all of that, but it's definitely a part of it.
Probably like the funniest moment with like Mikuru being kind of like the butt of like a sexual joke was in the disappearance when Gion is like kind of losing his mind over the fact that like this is not his world, and he's trying to talk to Mikuru and he's like, wait a minute, I know you have a star-shaped mole on your boobs, show it to me. And she just freaks out, and I'm just like, oh my god, you dumbass, but I actually feel for you because you're kind of having an existential crisis right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, could you imagine if someone that you had never met before had that like intimate detail about you that just no one else could possibly know unless someone was really close to you?
Yeah. It was that one was funny because I was just like, oh my god, did you really just do that? And then he immediately realized his mistake. He was like, shoot.
Okay, so that kind of leads into another question I had that is almost unrelated but still related. So, do you guys like Haruhi? I guess we'll go to Tobias first. Do you like Haruhi?
As a character, you mean?
As anything.
I would never be friends with her in real life, but as a character, because she is a character and only a character, I thought it was hilarious, like some of the stuff she would do.
Okay. Tobias?
I mean, if you're asking as a character, I feel like it's kind of a difficult question just to give a straight out answer. I feel like a lot of her actions and a lot of her, things that we mentioned really come as a sign of the times. Like, again, a 2006 anime series that was, the cause of a lot of the weird tropes that we see now. So, not that excuses any of her terrible actions or, or awkward actions, but I feel like it should at least be considered. I feel like she's my least favorite of the main cast. Definitely my least favorite character. However, rewatching it now and seeing the episode where it sort of recounts her experience at the baseball game, where she realized just how insignificant her life was.
Yeah,
I feel like that really made me appreciate her more, simply because we see that her motivation is this fear of being an average person, of just living a life that is, everyone thinks of themselves as being the main character in their story, and she has taken that to the extreme, where she's so afraid of the fact that everything around her is so mundane that she could get by without being a main character. That drives her to, do the whole thing on the field with the alien glyphs, to be the weird character in middle school, and to start to be that cold character in high school, and to have Gion be this enabler. I guess on the one hand, it's not great that he enables all of her attitudes, but the fact that he sort of gives her that in to be weird, to explore the things that about her that are different, to not be ashamed of that, and to just embrace that and embrace making this club, which I mean sure is weird, and sure I don't like what happens to Mikuru in this case, but it is just a fun high school experience overall for these characters and the SOS Brigade. And that's what we see like in the movie, is that by this time she's sort of calmed down enough where she's just there to have fun, whether it's decorate the club room in Christmas garb, or have a hot pot with everybody there, just trying to capture this maybe not normal but a fun high school experience. And I guess I can just understand that aspect of her character.
And I think what you outlined there is probably one of the big reasons why Haruhi was so resonant at the time, because just thinking back to that era, like a lot of the popular anime that were, at least the popular anime here in the US, were like high fantasy like and drama stuff. Like I'm thinking of like Death Note and Bleach, for example, like stuff that's kind of a little bit removed from the ordinary. And I think that, you know, this show being a really good example of something that like takes place in high school with like relatively normal kids that other high schoolers could sort of like see their own friend group in, is probably something that would have been very unique at the time. Like high school shows are kind of a dime a dozen these days, but back then they weren't so much. So I would attribute that the normalcy of Haruhi, even in all of its weirdness, is sort of what set it apart from some of the other things that were coming out that were more bombastic, more, you know, unrealistic, I suppose.
Yep.
And I'm sure a lot of people sort of saw themselves in these characters. Like I won't speak for you guys, but like there are some aspects of Haruhi that I really identify with. There are some of them that I am repulsed by because like, oh no, I see myself doing some of these things sometimes, or I've been around people that are like this and it's not fun or anything like that. And we all have, you know, had friends or acquaintances that are like Yuki Nagato, that are like Mikuru, that are like, you know, Gion and Koizumi and stuff like that. So there is that element of relatability to it, and I think that's definitely important, because, you know, plot aside, like character is what really propels shows into people's minds, and I think that this show has a lot of that, a lot of character.
Agreed.
Definitely a lot of the things that they did don't hold up today, but I still found it enjoyable because like I look at it, a lot of it as like it's so ridiculous that I still find it funny, even though it's like if I met you in real life, I probably would have hit you in the face. But there's just so much from this show that like I still appreciate, and there's only a handful of things from this show that I don't like, that I really still to this day did not like or appreciate.
Is one of those the Endless Eight?
One of those is the Endless Eight, and we can get into that in a second. But the other one is the final chronological episode, which features a like 10-minute segment of literally just Nagato sitting in the club room reading.
It's her elevator moment.
Yeah, pretty much. But like,
speaking of that, go ahead, Ryan, and then I've got a cute little thing to add in there.
Sure. So when I was watching this for the first time, I like thought that the video froze or something, and so I like kept on skipping ahead, and I was like, oh man, like the episode's broken. And then I started hearing like background noise, which I thought was coming from outside my window, and then I found out when I was like jumping back and forth, I was like, oh wait, this is intentional. Why?
Hey, just having a quiet day in the club room, the first time that ever happens.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of little cute moments that I noticed just watching through the Endless Eight, and I guess that can lead into us talking about that. So you know how in the Endless Eight they always go to get the job, like passing out flyers in those mascot costumes?
Yeah.
So there are a couple times, they don't do it in every single episode, but they do it a few times, where Gion will say some little quip after he takes his frog costume off. Uh-huh. And a lot of them are anime references. And I've got 3 of them written down here from Endless 8 number 4, 5, and 6. He makes 2 Gundam references and 1 Eva reference. So in number 4, whenever he takes off his frog costume, he says, I feel like a Gundam Virtue after it pops its armor, which is a Gundam 00 reference. And I think that had come out shortly before this show.
Right.
And number 5 is an Eva reference. He says, I feel like Unit 0 after it got hit by that beam. And I'm thinking, is he talking about like the Ramiel fight or whatever? I don't know. What, it doesn't matter.
That's what I thought it was. I caught that one this time because since the last time I've watched this, I've seen Eva. So
yes. And in the 6th one, he says another Gundam reference. He says, I feel like I was just released from the Adzum Leader Beam, which is I think that's another Gundam 00 reference or a Super Robot Wars thing or something, but like the Adzum is like this weird spider mech thing. So basically, Gion is a freaking weeaboo.
Oh yeah.
And he makes another Ava reference. I wrote it down in my phone. It was in one of the episodes towards the end of chronological order. He says, oh no, it's during one of the scenes where they're shooting the movie, and it's that scene where they're on the docks, and Mikuru's about to do that thing with her eye that causes something to happen each time she does it.
Mikuru beam.
Yeah, exactly. And then Yuki jumps on her to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
And he says, Kyon's behind the camera, and he's like looking. The scene is like through the lens of the camera, like looking at Nagato, like sort of straddling Mikuru, and he says to himself, put the target in the center and press record, which is like, and he delivers it in the same exact way that Shinji says, place the target in the center and pull the switch, like over and over and over and over again. It's so funny. There's a couple cute little quips like that, but Gion has a lot to say.
He does. But yeah, so if we want to get into the Endless Eight, so I probably am sure I would love to talk to somebody who watched the Endless Eight while it was airing, because I don't know anybody who has. And
me neither.
Yeah. And when I was watching this, remember I told you I was watching it on a YouTube channel, so when you're watching something on YouTube, especially when it's technically bootleg, it could be inconsistent. So it started over. I watched that episode and I was like, all right, that was just a nice little like slice of life summer adventures episode. And then it started off the exact same way. And I was like, I just watched this episode. That's weird. So I went to the next one and it started off the exact same way. So I was like, what's going on? And so I went to the comments, and then people were like, oh, it's the Endless Eight. And I was like, okay. So I watched the second episode and I was like, oh, okay, so it is different. And then I kept going, and I messaged one of my friends at one point, and I was just like, how long exactly is this going to go on for? And he was like, 8 episodes. And I was like, you're kidding me. And he told me, watch them all. It makes the movie better. So I did. And the funniest thing that I saw while I was doing this, when I was scrolling through the comments trying to figure out what the heck was going on, was probably one of the funniest things I've ever read on the internet. And I can't find it now because the original videos that I used are now gone, because pretty much the moment Funimation got the rights, they got taken down.
Yeah.
But it was a YouTube comment that was on every single video of the Endless Eight, and it was something along these lines. It's like, I really wish everybody would stop blaming Haruhi Suzumiya for the Endless Eight. And he also, anytime he said her name, he gave the full Haruhi Suzumiya. And he said, I really am upset that everybody keeps blaming Haruhi Suzumiya for this, because it's not Haruhi Suzumiya's fault. It's Yuki Nagato's fault. If you watch the movie and come back to this, you'll realize I'm right. I know Haruhi Suzumiya, and she would never do that. And so I'm just like, oh, okay, so you're one of these. And he just goes on for like a straight paragraph about why his wife Haruhi Suzumiya would not do this to people, and how it's actually Yuki Nagato's fault. I send this to my friend Jesse, and to this day we quote that, because it's just so funny to us.
My personal friend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Haruhi's a personal friend, and she would never do that.
Yeah. It's pretty much as much like credibility as when I say my personal friend Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
And like whenever somebody like questions me on that, I'm like, oh yeah, I have a picture with him. It's
like Tori at Disney World. Oh yes, my personal friend Mickey Mouse, and I know for a fact he would never do that.
Yeah, exactly. And just reading that made the Endless Eight a little more bearable, because I was just laughing at this weeaboo's pain.
So that does bring up an interesting question. I didn't put up together all the puzzle pieces about the Endless Eight and it being Nagato's fault. I always thought it was Kyone's fault because he didn't do his homework.
It's Kion / Haruhi's fault, because Kion didn't do his homework, and it's Haruhi's fault because she wanted Kion to do his stupid homework.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's fair.
That's
Kion
exactly
took
the reason
to figure that out.
It took him, what was the number? Like 13,000 loops before he realized he needed to do his homework.
Yeah, some ridiculous Doctor Strange type number.
Yeah. It was 15,532 iterations before Gion decided to do his homework.
And that is exactly how many years it takes to watch The Endless Eight.
Yup. But somebody did the math on that, and I don't remember exactly what the number was, but it's something like a couple hundred to a couple thousand years of them being stuck in that 2-week loop.
Oof.
Yeah, I just checked, actually. It's 595 years that they were stuck in that loop.
It's a long time.
It's a long, 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 long time. And if you recall, Nagato was the one character who lived every single iteration.
Nagato's been through a lot, so that that actually does make the movie make a little bit more sense, for sure.
Exactly. She just kind of snapped.
Yeah, definitely.
What's interesting also is in the books, the disappearance comes before the Endless Eight. So when they reference the Endless Eight, they're like, yeah, this happened. Gion's saying, like, yeah, this happened a couple weeks or a couple months before the disappearance did. And then he, like, tells the story. And in the book, you don't get loops. You get the last loop.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like, it's just... It jumps in, they go do the activities, and then it comes to the part where Mikuru calls him and is, like, upset. And then that's it. He realizes he needs to do his homework, and that's it. So that was interesting that the show actually delved into, like, the first time that they did this, and then 8 of the other times, or 6 of the other times, I guess. And, like, it just showed, like, how the characters were reacting, and Gion kept on, like, feeling like, crap, we're about to loop again, like, I don't know what to do. And Nagato keeps on living this over and over and is keeping track of all of it.
So in the books, they weren't. This incident is not called the Endless Eight, right? Because there's not.
It is.
Okay, why is it called the Endless Eight?
I don't know.
Isn't it 8? No, it's 2 weeks. It's not 8 days.
It's 2 weeks. It's not 8 days.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why it's called the Endless Eight, but it actually still is. The chapter name is called the Endless Eight.
Somebody who knows, let us know on social media, on Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, like, I know a lot about this series, but I didn't actually ever look into that reason because I didn't really think about it, honestly.
So was there a production reason on the side of KyoAni as to why they decided to animate so much of the Endless Eight?
They animated so much of it, and they also, I'm pretty sure they revoiced all of it.
Yeah,
they did, because the script is slightly different each episode. Just like I said with those, like, little references, like it's different every single time.
Yeah, and the one thing that's consistent though is Gion-kun Denwa, which is Gion the phone, and it's his sister every time his cell phone rings at the beginning.
So you're not familiar with any reason why they specifically went that direction?
Probably a directorial choice. Like, I don't think anybody's actually spoken to it.
Perhaps so. Maybe it was a television thing as well, because they were making this for TV, and I know that sometimes TV can be strange to work with.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's just kind of my speculation. There's probably some source out there that says why, but we're not familiar with it at this point. Again, if you know of it, if you know of a production thing out there as to why the Endless Eight was done in the show like it is, just link us to it on Facebook or Twitter. We really appreciate the info about it.
I mean, as I said earlier, like, the whole charm for Haruhi Suzumiya isn't really like the trapping of the normal slice of life stuff. It's that these weird paranormal incidents are happening. So having that happen, having them animate it, we have season 1 as the weird broadcast order where things don't make sense. Season 2 is you're watching the same episode over and over again. You're not really sure why. I feel like it's just part of it, and we consider the sort of the I don't know, like, AR stuff they were doing. Like, they had set up a website, the AOSOSbrigade.com. When the movie came out, they did, like, a fake 404 for it. There's just a bunch of weird things that go on in that sort of link up here in real life, and I think that just adds to the charm of the series and really makes it what it is.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that it is true Galaxy Brain to unironically love the Endless Eight?
Yeah,
kind of.
I mean, honestly, I don't personally have a problem with it. Like, I wouldn't watch all 8 episodes, but I am glad that they exist because that's some cojones you got there to do 8 episodes. That's the same thing, but as you said, it's not. They are 8 distinct episodes with 8 distinct animation and voice tracks. Like, so they intentionally did this, and the sheer hatred from fandom is hilarious to me.
I don't
It's
even know if
it's
it's hatred because for me, like when you're rewatching it, I watch 1, 7, and 8. I don't watch all the rest of them because there's no reason to. That's what most people say is you watch the first one, you watch one of the ones in between because you get like how they're feeling and like the fact that it's a loop, and then you get the resolution. You don't need 8 of them, you need 3. But if you watch all 8 of them sequentially, that's 3 hours of your life you just spent watching the same thing. Imagine Nagato having lived it for 500, 600, let's round it up, 600 years. Like, and then go watch the disappearance. You'll understand.
Yeah, you definitely bring a good piece of context to the story with that. Definitely, because it does make her decisions in the movie make a lot more sense, and I think the audience can empathize with that a lot more if they themselves sat through the Endless Eight,
For sure.
and experienced that, as you do. And I think that anybody who is interested in pursuing Haruhi Suzumiya should do that. If you're really interested in it, if you're just kind of so interested in that, and that sounds really unappealing to you, you might just want to pass on this show. But I guess we could talk about a little bit of that in sort of our closing remarks. But Tobias, I think your point is very very thoughtful, and I definitely tend to agree with that too, because as a big fan of Hideaki Anno, I appreciate things that sort of go off the deep end and kind of slap their fans in the face a little bit, because I think that keeps us humble, and we need that more often. So I appreciate the like you said earlier, the sheer audacity of them to do that.
And the cool thing about it is you don't have to watch all videos late. Like, don't feel bad if you can't sit through it all. It is interesting from a visual perspective, and it's interesting that they did it. But I myself have not watched all 8 episodes with full attention paid to them. I agree.
No,
that
I hear you.
Oh, full attention paid? Hell no.
Yeah, like I've been doing other things. I've had them on in the background just in case something changed. But yeah, like if you're already a little weirded out by it, if the people on the internet have won you over that Endless Eight is horrible, at least watch the first one and maybe skip to the last iteration. But don't not finish the rest of the series because of the Endless Eight, especially if you like season 1.
That was that was one of the things though, like that the show did better, even though it was so annoying. It is done better in the show than it is in the novel because you actually feel their pain. Because in the novel, it gets resolved immediately. So you're just like, huh, that must have sucked. And then in the show, you feel how much it sucked.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. For sure. All right. So do you guys want to transition to talking more about some of Haruhi's, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not extraneous, but something.
Related media?
Franchise. Yeah, related media.
Okay, yeah.
So you probably know more about that than any of us, Ryan.
I do. I own a crap ton of Haruhi media. My entire top shelf of my bookcase is filled like end to end with Haruhi stuff. I have all of the light novels in hardcover. I have half of the manga. I'm always looking for it. It's hard to find all of it. Yeah. I have some of the Nagato manga, and I have one of the volumes of Haruhi-chan. And I have 2 import games. One of them I found at Book Off, and it's a PS3 visual novel game, which I haven't played because I don't understand Japanese.
I think I showed you that one.
You did. Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And then at Triad this past year, I went to one of the dealers, and they had like everything here is 50% off. And I just so happened to see a Haruhi figure, and I was like, "Oh, cool! It's a Haruhi figure." And then I flip it around, and it's actually a collector's set of a Wii game.
What?
Yeah, it's a rhythm game for the Wii that comes with a Haruhi figure bundled with it, and it was $15. And I was like, the game alone is worth this, and I get a figure with it. And I'm never unwrapping that thing, so
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's I have a lot of cool stuff for that. But there's I mentioned Haruhi-chan. That is a chibi series. where if you know chibi series, they're typically short episodes. They're completely nonsensical and completely non-canon.
Thank God.
For instance, Mikuru has a pet lion, and Asakura is back in this one, but she's like the size of like an ant, essentially. She's really small, and Nagato pretty much just takes care of her and like pokes her every so often. And it's a cute series. It's fun. The entire like anime series you can get through in about 45 minutes because it's a chibi series, and it's funny. It's, if you need more Haruhi, it's definitely worth your time.
So they're just like little 3-minute episodes or something?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And then there's the disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan, which takes place in the universe of the disappearance. It's kind of similar to, you know how at the end of Evangelion, not the movie, the end of Evangelion, but, or actually was that in the end?
You're talking about TV ending.
Yeah, I think, where they had the slice of life segment.
Yeah, that's in the end of the TV show.
Okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't remember. But yeah, it's kind of in that vein, because they have an entire series of the ending of the TV show of Evangelion with the slice of life, and there's a series following the universe of the disappearance surrounding Nagato predominantly, and Gion's also in it. All the major characters are in it. But
so you mean this takes place in the universe where Nagato is the shy girl that kind of likes Gion?
Yes, that's exactly where it takes place. And like,
so does it it takes place in the same universe as the movie? So is it established that it like takes place like before Gion realizes that he's out of his universe?
No, it's not established at all. I think it's just as if Gion never realized it, because there are a lot of parallels to the show. Like, there's a lot of events that coincide that happen like in the show and then happen in the disappearance. So they're definitely distinct, but the characters are pretty much still the same. The only real complaint I had is like some of the art decisions were a little different, but Asakura was a main character, and I loved her before, plot happened to her. And so that was nice to have her back. And there's an interesting plot element of that where robot Nagato actually is a part of that show. Like, she gets into like an almost traumatic like near death experience that pretty much leaves her like basically vegetative. Like, not vegetative, but she like loses all emotion for like a good while, and during that time she like confesses that she has feelings for Gion because he's trying to help her get through this, and then when she like gets out of it, she completely forgets everything that happened. So it was a nice series. I definitely enjoyed it. A lot of people didn't, but I think that's probably, and I'm totally speaking for these people, I don't actually know reasons for most of them. Like, sure, you didn't like the plot, but most Haruhi fans that I can tell didn't like it because it wasn't season 3. And I can attest to that because they got all the original cast back. They could have easily had done season 3 instead of the disappearance, but they didn't.
So, how does it play out? Because they establish in the film that Haruhi and Koizumi in this universe go to a different school. So right. Are they doing like their own antics in like the other school, or are they still part of like the core like cast?
Both. So Haruhi and Koizumi still are a part of the other school, but due to happenstance, Gion and Nagato run into Haruhi at one point. And like that's around episode 3. Like, you see Haruhi just kind of in passing, and other times, and then they like help her do something, and then they go their separate ways. And then Gion and Nagato are sitting in the literary club room, and Gion looks out the window and sees Haruhi standing there, and she runs up. That is one of my favorite scenes in that show, because Gion, you already can tell, just doesn't like her, and like in the Melancholy, he puts up with her because literally the fate of existence is at stake, and he kind of likes her, I guess. But in this one, you straight up see just the rage and disgust on his face. It's like, no, why is she here? And he's just so visibly annoyed to like the nth degree. And also there's a song that plays whenever Haruhi's doing something stupid in the Melancholy. And during this scene, that song is playing, so I'm just like, of course, this is perfect. It was just so funny.
Yeah,
But,
so I've also heard that sort of disdain about that show not being what people wanted it to be, but that doesn't mean that it is bad. So I'm glad to hear that you, as a big fan of this franchise, were very satisfied with what you got.
yeah, if you can get past the fact that it isn't season 3, it's very enjoyable.
Does it have the similar like tone as the rest of the series? Like, is Gion still a narrator, or does it go in kind of a different direction?
It doesn't really narrate at all, but Nagato is the protagonist. It follows her. It doesn't follow Gion.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, that's a great show, and I honestly do recommend picking it up. And it's short. I think it's only 24 episodes. And It has the entire original cast, both sub and dub, so it's really well done. And the last thing I kind of want to mention about like expanded media, it's kind of funny to me. I picked up a few packs of the Weiss Schwarz Haruhi set when it came out because I like art. And I have those sitting in a binder. There are a lot of Weiss Schwarz cards that have moments that were never animated.
So like scenes from like the light novels?
Yeah. Or kind of the manga in a way, because the manga did finish. But yeah, it's kind of weird to me that they did actually print scenes that were not in the anime, like when Haruhi goes and gets her past self for antics.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They probably just like got the illustrators or whatever to be like, hey, make us some designs for these cards that we're gonna sell and make $1 billion on.
Exactly. And they have a couple characters that hadn't appeared in the show, but they do appear in the light novel. Like, slight spoilers, there's another alien, there's another Esper, there's another Esper organization. Like, there's pretty much a foil to all of the protagonists. And it's very interesting. Like, the later stories are really good.
So do we have anything else that we want to discuss before we sort of wrap up and do Twitter questions?
There's one thing I wanted to ask, at least of Ryan, because I know you've watched you've read the light novels, and I've never really got around to it, but I've been wanting to. But regardless, sure. I heard a really interesting theory a while back that the light novels apparently touch upon, and it's the idea that Haruhi is not in fact the god character, it's Gion.
Yeah.
And that, like, it's his desire for an interesting life. You know, we talk about that opening dialogue is him talking about Santa Claus and not believing in stuff and very irrational thinking. But it is, I feel like one of the reasons Gion goes along with Haruhi so much is he really secretly likes the fun of everything. And we see in Disappearance, that's the major theme at the end, is that he chooses the old life because it's fun. So do you feel like the novels really leave it up to the viewer? Like, is Gion really the god character and Haruhi is really just his instrument?
The only there's a few instances that I can definitely see that, and like he's just using Haruhi as an excuse, or like he sees what Haruhi wants and secretly wants it himself.
Right. But
the only exception to that is, I'm going to mention the Endless Eight again, because I feel like he wouldn't subject himself to that. So
at least not intentionally.
Yeah, unless he like really feels guilty about not doing his homework.
Well, I don't think there's ever been a high schooler that's really felt guilty about not doing their homework. Let's be fair.
No.
But no, that's definitely a debated thing. It's not like, not too many people actually buy into it, but I can see it. Like, it's definitely an interesting perspective, like, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of parallels the end of the movie where he talks to Yuki and is like, all right, if they ever take you away, I'm going to tell Haruhi and you know, get you back and all that kind of stuff. I feel like that's kind of, even if he may not have deific power himself, his will has created Haruhi, who is an instrument of chaos. So, I mean, I feel like that's a really interesting way to think about it. We see his Gion as just this very sarcastic character, but, you know, internally, he wants this stuff to happen too.
Yeah. It's, yeah. I definitely like that perspective. It's fun to talk about, but no, I don't believe it myself.
All right, guys. So I guess here in closing, before we get to Twitter questions, I guess we'll just go around the table real quick and just give your final thoughts, like your final pitch, I guess, for this show. And we'll go ahead and start with Tobias. Just tell us your final thoughts about Haruhi in general and what you think people should take away from it.
So, watching it in 2018 for Fresh is going to be a little difficult because a lot of shows have built off of it and done kind of a maybe not better, but a more palatable job. I feel like Kyoani's later work, Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions, kind of hits a lot of the same notes. Although I'm not a fan of the way that show ended. I think Haruhi is a little better than that. But regardless, I feel like this is still a show you should go back and watch if you're like an anime nerd at all. I would personally recommend watching it in broadcast or trying it in broadcast order the first time. And if you don't like it, move to chronological. I think based on your own personal taste, if you know that you don't like when shows jump around in a chronological timeline, then of course go for chronological order naturally. But if you like to be challenged, I would highly recommend doing broadcast, at least starting off. Don't skip the movie. The movie's really good. Don't let Endless 8 and the discussion thereof turn you off to the series as a whole. Just skip over it if you don't like. But regardless, I still think this is as burnt out as it has been in the community, it still is a very important show to everything as a whole.
Ryan?
So I fully acknowledge all the problems this show has, and anybody who ever mentions it to me, I literally answer them like this: you're completely correct, but I still love this show anyways.
I think it's great to have shows like that because I definitely have some too. So yeah, because
we all
Tobias
have one.
and I. Yeah, Tobias and I were talking about it just yesterday. Like, I really love Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. It's not an amazing movie, but I love it because it just panders directly to me. It's just something about it just speaks to me. And Tobias said he didn't really dig it, and that's totally fine because I also acknowledge that it's not an excellent movie. It's just excellent to me.
There is nothing perfect.
Oh yeah. That's true. Not even Evangelion is perfect.
Hey, whoa. All right, this is Third Impact Anime Podcast. Keep that in mind.
No,
that's
Austin.
true. Oh,
when
man,
Austin showed me Evangelion for the first time, I was giving him my thoughts as they were coming out, and pretty much every complaint I had, he's like, "Yeah, I know."
yeah, especially some of those animation quality dips there in the middle,
Yeah.
but whatever.
More so just the ending, but everybody who's a fan knows what happened.
Yeah, that ending is perfect. You got to fight me on that one. It's perfect.
I mean, the
But
show
anyway,
ending.
they're both perfect. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think that there's definitely some things that if you're a fan of high school antics shows, this is probably one of the best in its genre. It's at least one of the more complex ones that delivers its themes and its story in a way that's very, very unique and very interesting. And there's a lot of stuff out there that is like Haruhi, but there is really nothing that's like Haruhi.
Yeah.
For the good and the bad. So if you're somebody that really likes a very strong main character, if you're somebody that likes just a story that's told in an interesting way, check out Haruhi. Again, don't sort of let there's two spectrums on Haruhi, I think. There's the sort of the diehard spectrum where Haruhiism is the religion of the land, and to say anything negative about our Lord and Savior Haruhi, either the person or the show, is just blasphemy. And then there's also the people that are the show is too disjointed, it's really stupid, it was never that good back in the day, it's not good now. And I think the real truth lies somewhere in the middle. So don't listen to the internet fanatics. Just if Haruhi looks interesting to you, check it out, and definitely check out that movie because that's a really good movie. If you like Steins Gate, a really, really good film to sort of capture some of the same ideas as Steins Gate. All right,
Steins Gate's next on my list. There's one other thing that I want to mention, and I'm kind of annoyed I didn't bring this up sooner, but the music in the show is perfect.
Yes, I was actually about to get to that with my
perfect.
next question in the closing questions little area. So for you guys, what do you think is the most iconic moment of the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, the TV series or the movie? For me, I think it's probably the song that she sings on stage in the bunny girl costume with Yuki. I just said the name of that song earlier.
God knows.
God knows. Yeah, that's probably, to me, the most iconic moment of this show is God knows, or the Haruhi hair changing scene from like episode 1.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
So Ryan, what is your most iconic moment from this franchise?
Let's do Tobias first.
Okay.
Gee, there's a lot. I like the hair changing scene. I feel like the most visually, the scene that pops out the most visually to me is the one from Disappearance, where the presents like pour out and explode through the window, pushing Gion out. Is another very visually stunning scene to me. I love the entire Day of Sagittarius 3 episode. All the sci-fi scenes are hilarious. I love the little touches there for all their capital ships, and I love that. And and I think the opening home movie, just seeing that as a first episode, and I think that's perfect. Just it's goofy. They really portrayed how awkward these high school kids are trying to film something for the first time. Kion's snarky narration is hilarious, and the little funny visual touches, the special effects they try to do, I think it makes it for me.
Yeah, I would probably have to say the Tanabata episode, where he goes back in time and paints the field for young Haruhi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it showed like a lot of character moments. It gave a lot of depth into Haruhi and why she feels the way she feels, and it just shows how much he actually does like care about her.
Yeah.
And future Mikuru moments are always like great for me because they're interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like that was probably the most iconic one for me, is when he went back in time and did that.
And I'm okay. So first of all, I'm really surprised none of you said the Hare Hare Yukai dance as the most iconic, because that's
not a moment.
Is.
I mean, it's the most iconic thing. It's not really a moment.
That's true. That's true. I would say that's probably the biggest cultural touchstone of this. For sure. But
to kind of cut in before we move on, Ryan was talking about the future Mikuru movie moments. I really like those as well. I like seeing the fact that we are presented with evidence that Mikuru is not horrifically scarred by being abused by Haruhi. Like she's able to get over it and become a stronger person at the end of the day. And I really like seeing that. Like she comes out.
That's so true.
At the end of the day, she comes out okay, and she kind of can laugh at these scenes and. You kind of see this melancholy in and of itself, where she likes Gion, but she knows that since she knows what happens in the past, she knows that like they can't be together, at least in a normal situation. So there's this melancholy in her scenes as well, where she's kind of like playfully flirtatious with him, but doesn't go over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives a good mystery to it, because you know that you're not getting the full story here, but you know that there is a story here, and your brain and your assumptions and her actions can sort of speak for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, because there was the moment in the Disappearance where you see that future Mikuru is like really wigged out by Yuki, and you're just like, why?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, one of the closing questions. Just real quick, just give your answer. We'll move on. So. This is a favorite character question, but I'm going to frame it as, who is best girl? Tobias.
Mikuru.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Tobias, let's answer the question. When I first watched this series, I thought Mikuru was the best girl for sure. Now I see her just being a little too pandering for my taste. I appreciated the development we got through Yuki, with again the Day of Sagittarius 3 and the fact that she actually enjoyed hacking the game. And then seeing her as a human being and the Disappearance was really touching too. I did kind of wish that Gion had just stuck around with her, because I think it would be a really cute show to watch, even if it wasn't very interesting.
There is a show to watch about that.
Yeah, I should pick it up now. I kind of blinked on it when it first came out. I thought it was going to be another chibi, crappy CG thing, but
Nah.
no, it's not. So I'm glad to hear it. So I'll definitely go and check it out. Uh, I liked a lot of the characters. I thought each of the SOS Brigade was really interesting. I think my fan favorite definitely Chiruya, the green haired
Surya?
girl. Yeah, the green haired girl that
Yeah.
just hangs out and laughs at everything.
Yeah, she's great.
She is me. Yeah, no, I don't. It's hard to pick one particular character. I like them all, but I appreciate Yuki more now than I did then. I would leave it at that.
Yeah. Yuki definitely has the best character moments.
I'm picking Shamisen as mine.
Oh my god, of course.
There you go.
Shamisen is funny.
All right, so let's see. Oh, so another question. Which opening did you guys like better, the first one or the second one?
First one, hands down.
Yeah, I barely remember the second one. The first one is just so iconic. Boken Desho is just so great, and Haruhi Yukai, of course, is iconic as well.
Oh yeah.
I honestly found the second one to be more of a bop. Maybe it's just because I like the chorus better, but I also think they're good. But I gotta put my hat in the second one. Gotta be that ne'er do well.
I thought the first one fit the tone of the show like really well.
Yeah.
Like,
It does.
yeah.
I like the animation. Just the animation of the first one, like there's like that sea of stars, and like you see Mikuru just fly by on the clock in tears.
Yeah.
Like there's just so much of it that kind of pops for me. It's very nostalgic.
That initial scene in the very opening of the opening is a riff on the Escaflowne opening,
Okay.
because they do the same exact thing, like the low angle shot with the character like facing away, and you see a sea of stars in the sky, and then they whip around really quick to like a close up on their face. That is directly from the Vision of Escaflowne opening. I'll link it to you guys, and you guys will be like, oh yeah, obviously.
なぞなぞみたいに地球儀を解き明かしたらみんなでどこまでも行けるね時間の果てまでブーワークでディープなこの想いは何もかもを巻き込んだ想像で遊ぼうある晴れた日のこと魔法以上の愉快が限りなく降り注ぐ不可能じゃない
All right, so I guess we can jump into Twitter questions here. So our first Twitter question comes from another cohort of ours, from Sarah at UniqueXHarmony on Twitter. Is there a character that high school you totally would have hung out with? For me, most likely, judging by who I was in high school, I would probably have hung out with someone most closely to Yuki, or probably Gion.
I probably would have hung out with Mikuru and Koizumi, because Mikuru reminds me of one of my friends who's a really good friend still, and then Koizumi I feel like I would have met him at some point and just kind of hit it off.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to say Miku. I would like to say Yuki, but I feel like sort of her silent demeanor would have made me thought that she hates me. Like most people, you kind of have that default where people don't talk to you, you kind of think, oh man, they gotta secretly hate me. I would see myself as being a Kyon type figure, getting dragged around by somebody with a very more boisterous personality, which is pretty much what happened in college, among a few other different types of people. So it would honestly, not really happy to say this, be Haruhi.
Cool.
All
right. So Tori asks, and Tobias, you gave a pretty good answer to this early on.
Yeah.
Why is Haruhi such a brat?
Yeah. So like I said, like we get the introduction with her character. She's really afraid. That's really what drives Haruhi. She's afraid to be normal, to be lost in the normalcy. And she does things which are pretty excusable. Yeah, she kind of does all that crap to Mikuru, but I think part of that is just the fact this is a 2006 anime with 2006 anime tropes. She is very much a tsundere character, and Mikuru is very much a moe blob character. So we kind of have to consider this being a very just tropey show when we consider with like what they do. I don't feel like Haruhi's issues justify a lot of her actions, but I have to at least give it to her that she's making the most out of life. And if we were going with the idea of Haruhi being an instrument wielded by Gion, who's the real god in the situation, then it's I don't know, like it would be a projection of his own desires for a high school life, assuming you go with that theory. So she just serves a plot purpose in that degree.
Do you have anything to add, Ryan?
Nope.
Me neither. All right. So we kind of already went into this, but Jeff asks, why was there a need for the Endless Eight, other than to just say, heck you, audience, which I'm fine with that being the explanation.
It gives better understanding of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very good answer.
I don't agree with the personification of being a heck you, like an insult. I feel like fans read those kind of things like this and the whole Evangelion ending as being insults from the creators to us, but I don't think they really are. They're depictions in a very different way, and Haruhi really needs to be depicted in a different way to stand out.
I hear you. I was being a little bit crass with that because I generally do agree with the way that you framed it. It's a heck you, not necessarily a personal attack to the audience, but a heck you in the sense of subverting what you would normally expect.
Like heck your expectations.
Yeah, exactly. Heck-spectations.
Austin.
All right, so now we have a long string of Basil questions, but I'm gonna get Andrew's
Here we go with the bullshit again.
So we're not going to answer all of them because some of them he kind of asks questions that other folks already did. So actually, you know what? Let me do Andrew from Nos Anime a favor and do his first because he was a humble man and only gave us 2.
Okay.
So Andrew from @NOS_anime says, while Haruhi is definitely overbearing as a character, other similarly bullish characters, especially in shonen anime, seem to be allowed to get away without being so negatively remembered. Do you think there is a particular reason for this? Personally, I think that the reason for that is just it's like a tone and setting thing, at least in some part, because Haruhi seems a whole lot more boisterous and like overbearing and bullish just because of like the world that she's in and the characters that are surrounding her. Like everyone except Haruhi is pretty chill and laid back. She's the only one that is sort of like mucking things up, for better or worse, interrupting her quiet life. In a shonen anime, there are probably a bunch of characters that are doing that, and usually the stakes are higher and like the stress level is much higher. So I would say that is at least part of it. Do you guys have any other takes on that?
No, you pretty much said everything I thought.
I do. The singular point here, the reason why Haruhi is considered so different than other character types is simply because of Gion. Because in every other show like this, the tsundere character is really, I mean, to be fair, almost a fetish character. They're there to serve a particular archetype for a female character to have, most likely a romantic, relationship with the main character. The main character is just a self-insert blank slate. But with Gion, we see he very much has a personality, and he very much is not happy with being bossed around like he is. Even if he is happy with it, even if he does come to terms with the fact that he really does care for her, he doesn't really say that in the text of his narration throughout the show. So I think that's really why we remember Haruhi as being like she is, more so than other characters. I also feel like, she goes a little overboard with her treatment of the rest of the characters, and they kind of just take it. Whereas other shows like this, the major tsundere character is just there to be, hot cold with the main character rather than actively bullies everybody else.
So this next question, Ryan, you kind of already went into a little bit, but maybe you can speak a bit more about it with a specific example. Have y'all completed the novels that weren't animated? If so, what's your opinion on some of the additional tales about the gang? I have not done any of that. Ryan, if you've read any of the other stories, what do you think about some of the other things that are like novel exclusive?
Snowy Mountain Syndrome is one of my favorite stories. It's just so well written. I can just picture that would be the next thing they animate probably. And also the split reality story was really interesting. So I really liked them. They were all a lot of fun.
Cool. All right, now to Basil's tornado of questions. All right, so Basil at It's Basil Time on Twitter asks, considering the show was like an exploding sun, do you think people still really remember this show? I think the older fans remember it, but younger fans may have heard of it. They may have heard the Hari Hari Yukai before, that they might not know that it's from Haruhi Suzumiya. They might recognize that name, but they probably haven't actually seen the show.
Hey man,
Yeah.
I'm not old. What are you talking about? I'm hip with the kids. Come on.
You like that My Hero Macadamia?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love those cookies.
I'd be inclined to agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of the times. You had to have been there to really get the full brunt of Haruhiism. If not, then I mean, you still feel the after effects, whether you understand it or not. But yeah, it's gonna be. You had to have been there, man.
It's kind of like an Urusei Yatsura thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is sort of taken directly from Yatsura, but like, how many people of even our age demographic and, needless to say, younger, have, really seen or heard of anything related to Yatsura itself rather than maybe perhaps recognizing who Lum is?
Yeah, I would say Lum Bing would be more iconic than the show she comes from, as just like Haruhi herself is probably really iconic.
Yep.
Right. Kind of got into this already. Do you think the show is still relevant? That's kind of a loaded question, I think.
No, it's not relevant anymore, but it's still enjoyable.
Yeah,
I guess it's
I would say
it's relevant.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I guess it's relevant to the context of the modern day, but as
Yeah.
it being like actively relevant and influential, not so much.
Yeah.
Yep, I would agree.
Should the show still be? I
I
mean,
think we kind of just touched on that. I mean,
not really, because like kind of like what you said, Tobias. Like, it's a sign of the times. Like, things are just gonna lead into other things, and then they're gonna lead into other things, and we can't always be like, well, why isn't this show popular anymore? It's just because it's not. It's because there's new things now, and we can enjoy those things too, and enjoy the things from the past too. But not everything has to be relevant all the time at the same time.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Cheers isn't popular anymore.
Yeah. So what? We already kind of went over that. So what was Kyon's best quip? Do you guys have any in particular that you liked that you can think of?
My personal favorite from Gion I relate to so much is I'm begging you, establish context before you start talking.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So which of Haruhi's hairstyles were your favorite? I like her long hair.
I thought the one where it was like tied up in like 4 different places and in like braided ponytails was really funny.
Yeah, or the one where they're just almost, yeah, like that one, or the one that are kind of like other similar tentacles, where it's just random bunches of hair splayed
Yeah.
out. I really like the one where they're done into like Sailor Moon-ish buns with like the green buns. That was a different look.
Mm-hmm. And when she just wears it up in a ponytail, that's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of touched on this a little bit already. Do you think how people should react to the character of Haruhi considering the Me Too movement? She should probably check her Twitter history. Yeah, that we definitely kind of outlined that too, like her being so grabby and very inappropriate with Mikuru is like, it's played for laughs, but it's really not that funny if you think about it. And that stuff's definitely there. You can't ignore it, but I mean, I don't know. It kind of is what it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
to also be relevant, it's kind of like the whole James Gunn thing. Like those jokes might have been funny in a very edgier time, and an edgier me might have like enjoyed that stuff. And I certainly, I dug like the what do you call it, like the pandering stuff that Haruhi did back then.
Yeah.
But like now, like I can understand that it was acceptable and interesting back in 2006. But now it's like, it's an artifact of the time.
Yeah.
Yep. So now he asks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, what did you think of the Endless Eight? We've already talked about it, so do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
No, we covered it.
Should
pretty
I
well.
ask? Should I ask? Do you have anything else to add 8 times?
Nope.
All right, moving
Well,
on.
I got something to add.
Do you?
Well, I have something to add.
Okay, shut up. So now it's our time to tell Basil what did he think of the Endless Eight.
You loved it.
Excellent. Did you watch all episodes of the Endless Eight? I did. Ryan did.
I have multiple times.
Tobias, have you ever? I know you didn't this most recent time.
I mean, it was on in my presence, and I was absorbing at least some of the anime.
I will count that as a hard yes.
Absolutely.
Did you enjoy Kyoto Animation's trolling? I think we've kind of outlined that it's not really trolling per se.
It's artistic.
I loved it.
Why aren't they giving us more Full Metal Panic? Sure, another anime studio is now giving, or at least gave us more, but come on, KyoAni. That's actually not true, because we just got a new season of Full Metal Panic, like, just a couple seasons ago.
Well, yeah, and also, this is a Haruhi podcast. I haven't watched Full Metal. Yeah. Also,
why is it not KyoAni?
Well, yeah, that's what he's asking here, is like, sure, another studio is doing it, but why not more?
They gotta make more Swimming Boys, dude. They're busy.
They are very, very busy. I never really got into Full Metal Panic. I watched a couple episodes, but I saw some of Fumofu, and I can appreciate the like goofy comedy from that series.
Yeah.
I watched about half of the first series. I thought it was pretty good, but that's not KyoAni. That was Gonzo, I think.
The original?
The original was Gonzo, yeah, but the other two were KyoAni.
I like how they reference the two series and Koizumi's attacks in the Cape Cricket episode.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that. Wow.
Yeah.
I know that the mascot character from Full Metal Panic appears in Amagi Brilliant Park, which is another KyoAni thing. I never watched that show though. I don't know. That's the one where it had like a character named Kanye, and people were making a joke about that for a while. But anyway, whatever. So when is the Haruhi crossover with the Ladies and Tuba shows gonna happen? That'd be neat. I don't know what in the world would happen, but that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I'd be down.
I like. It'd probably be more appropriate to have a crossover with K-On! And Sound Euphonium. That would be neat. Where the K-On! Girls convince the Sound Euphonium girls to stop playing their instruments and just sit down and have tea.
While the SOS Brigade shows up and ruins everything.
Absolutely. But really, Endless 8 ended up being hella boring, and I dropped off the show hard. Should I go back?
Yes, it gets really good after the Endless 8.
Yeah. Just skip it, watch one episode to get an idea, but then watch the rest of it. Absolutely.
Read the wiki, watch the movie, then go back.
Yep.
Be me. And that'll do it. That's it. That is all the Twitter questions. So I think we're done here, guys.
I think
so. I think we did a really good job. I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about this good show. You've definitely broadened my mind about it a little bit, and I hope that you guys can say the same. Yeah, Haruhi, cool stuff.
Great show. Still my favorite, even though I'm willing to admit it has flaws.
Yeah, I really enjoyed rewatching it here. It's been a while since I did so, and for being something so important to me, 10 years ago, it was a fun rewatch.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to say that I have, after many years, probably about 8 or 9 years maybe, finally got the show finished. So that's a good feeling.
Nice.
But yeah, if you guys want to check out Haruhi Suzumiya, it is available pretty easily now. It is on Crunchyroll. It is on VRV. It's on Blu-ray. It's on all that stuff. I think all of it except for the movie is available on streaming, and that does include Yugi-chan and Haruhi-chan as well. So yeah, it's available and out there, and you could check it out if it sounds interesting.
Yep.
So, Tobias, where can people talk to you about anime on social media?
You can talk to me about anything you like. Social media-wise, I'm on Twitter, at Reverend_Tobias. And that's pretty much where I hang out at.
Cool. Ryan, what about yourself?
I've been starting to dabble on the Bird site a little bit more. It's at Ryan McEntee. We'll link it below. I stream occasionally on Twitch at twitch.tv/1RDMgamer. And myself and 2 other friends of ours are starting to work on a gaming YouTube channel, but that's still in the works. But I'm going to slowly start to shamelessly promote that. And yeah, you could probably also talk to me if you like come to my house, but if you ask me a question, I'll probably be like, I don't know, get out of my house. And yeah, also I'm very engaged on the Third Impact group. So if you want to talk to me about stuff, ask me there.
Yep, that's a really good place to contact all of us because we're all in there in one way or another. As for me, I'm on Twitter on the Bird site pretty regularly at Bebop Shock, and that's Bebop as in Cowboy Bebop, and Shock as in Bioshock, and yeah, Bird site. As far as general Third Impact things, you can find our Facebook page at facebook.com/thirdimpactanime, and there you can find the link to our Facebook group, which is called the Third Impact Anime Community, and you can just join there, and you'll get podcast updates, you'll get updates, Bird Impact Anime, thanks Tobias. But yeah, you can get updates on all of our podcasts there, and we'll post stuff from cons or like interesting things that are floating around the anime internet community and whatnot. Pretty low on memes. We want to keep it that way. Go find memes elsewhere.
Memes are good, but yeah.
Yeah, we want to keep it mostly like social in a non-image macro kind of way. But yeah, you can find us there. And our podcast is pretty much available anywhere. It's available exactly where you're finding it right now, in addition to it being available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, all that cool stuff. And if you liked this episode or have liked other episodes of ours, or if you've come to any of our panels and seen us do that thing where we talk about anime in front of a group of people at a convention, please consider popping over to our Facebook page and giving us a little star rating and a little review. We really appreciate stuff like that. It really helps us out with knowing exactly what our audience wants and knowing how to be better podcasters, better panelists, and better people in the general sense as we live on this large, round, flat earth. All right, guys. Well, it's been great. It's wonderful talking to you guys as always. And I guess we'll see you in the next one.